Hello everybody and welcome to our bonus podcast for this week. I am Michael.
I'm Gemma.
And this week we're going to be doing a long-awaited, for us at least, Coronation Street Doctor Who crossover chat.
Hooray!
Hooray! We're not actually thinking of ways that Doctor Who and Coronation Street could have crossover episodes, but because they kind of have already quite a bit, haven't they? We're going to be looking back over the history of the two shows, talking about what we like about them and saying how kind of there's been a bit of sharing of actors between the two of them, and that's probably going to be
British institutions, aren't they, that have been going for a very long time indeed.
Almost over 60 years for both of them.
Yeah, so it would be strange if there weren't overlaps.
It would.
And
there was a lot more than I thought there would be.
I would say that, you know, you can have as many arguments as you like about what represents British culture, but if you wanted to pick two shows and say this is what it's like to be British, you could kind of give these two up as like, yeah, this is what it's like.
They've both been around for as long as most people have been alive at the moment.
Yeah, what represents us as a cultural export?
Yeah, Doctor Who and Coronation Street, absolutely. Well, this week is Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. It's coming up on Thursday this week.
I mean, you got there eventually, guys.
Yeah, come on, catch up. You'll never catch up.
Well, hopefully.
And you had a gap, Doctor Who. You're just like those other soaps during COVID. Coronation Street has stayed the course.
There were gaps. If you want to hear more about Coronation Street's gaps, go and listen to our strike episodes.
Oh yeah, of course. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The new episodes of Doctor Who are starting on Saturday. They're doing a 3-episode kind of comeback special-y thing with David Tennant playing the Doctor again and Catherine Tate as Donna as his companion. And it is a great time to be a Doctor Who fan at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's Disney money. Disney money.
I'd say a great time to be a Doctor Who fan, which we kind of are. I'm gonna, kind of Doctor Who fans. Not as big Doctor Who fans as Coronation Street fans. We don't do a Doctor Who podcast on the side that you haven't heard of.
I'd be too scared to do a Doctor Who podcast. Disclaimer, not an expert here. Never said I was an expert on Coronation Street either, though. That never stopped me. But Doctor Who fans, I feel, a very passionate group, and if you're one of those group, welcome to our podcast. Please be lenient upon us. We are but mere novices.
We have got to get this disclaimer out of the way first. Although we enjoy watching Doctor Who, me especially, I would say, we are by no means experts. We are going to say things that are wrong. Yep. We're going to make sweeping generalisations about things. We're not going to show ourselves up as very good Doctor Who fans, but we never said we were. We're just
enthusiastic amateurs.
Yeah, absolutely, very amateur.
There's room for everyone at the table, surely.
And there's an awful lot of Doctor Who to know about, isn't there? At least when we did, I suppose that's not true. We did do a Harry Potter crossover chat in Coronation Street. We've done Game of Thrones. Yeah. There's only so much to know about Harry Potter, and yes, there's a lot of Game of Thrones book chat, but we knew the show inside out. Not so much with Doctor Who.
If we did a Downton Abbey crossover, it would just have one big mention, really, wouldn't it?
Is that?
Well,
I thought you were going to talk about Dr. Gaddas.
The maid, Dr.
Joe
Gaddas,
Froggatt. And an
Arthur.
older. Who's Arthur?
The dad of the.
I thought you were going to talk about the obvious Liam Connor one in Downton Abbey.
Oh well, there you go.
Anyway, we're not talking about that. That's the past.
Expert.
That's who's the future and the past.
And the present.
So.
Oh God.
This is going off the rails. So well. So anyway. Disclaimer: we are going to show ourselves up as not knowing very much about Doctor Who, but we'll do our best.
Stick with us.
So I wanted, before we did the crossover chat, to have a little bit of a talk about our own personal experiences with Doctor Who, just so that listeners, you have got some context. I'm going to say I don't think that we've got time to explain what Doctor Who is. I assume if you know, you're listening and you don't need it explained to you, and if you don't know, you've probably turned off already, so that's fine. But you've been watching Doctor Who longer than I have, haven't you?
Go on, what do you think? What are you going to say? What do you think?
Well, because Doctor Who, the main series, ran from 1963 to 89, I'm going to say, maybe. And then
Why
came
are you
back.
Guessing?
Because I'm showing that I don't know these things.
Okay.
I think that's right. I don't think it got into the 90s.
Right.
Then it had its TV special in 1996 with Paul McGann, and then 2005 onwards was the reboot with Christopher Eccleston playing the Doctor and Billie Piper playing Rose. Now, I never watched any of that classic pre-1989 series, but you did, didn't you?
Why do you think that?
Because I think you told me.
Okay.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I'm just interested at how much you remember.
I listen to everything you say and take in the parts that are tangentially related to my interests.
But this is bad because I don't know enough about it to even explain what I did.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't need to. You did watch it back then, didn't you?
So do you remember any particular... back then?
Back in the day. Back in the olden days of the 80s.
So I'm pretty sure that I watched it when the Fifth Doctor, who's Peter Davison, who's the cricket one.
Yeah,
okay?
The cricket
doctor. The cricket doctor.
That's probably the first thing you said that angered the fans. Yeah, the cricket doctor.
Cricket doctor, and I'm just trying to quickly look this up on TARDIS.fandom.com, who we have to say thank you very much.
Did you also... Oh yeah, TARDIS.fandom.com. Sorry, you're the Corriepedia for this episode. I barely even looked at Corriepedia for this. Sorry guys, you're great most of the time. But TARDIS Wiki was absolutely amazing for this. Did you watch any of the grumpy curly-haired Doctor, number 6?
No, I don't think I liked him. But then again, I'm just looking this up because this Doctor was in 1982, 1980... to 1984, I think. And,
so you must have seen repeats.
I must have seen repeats, yeah.
Yeah, because there was grumpy curly haired Doctor.
Wasn't he kind of romantic, the Sixth Doctor? He was kind of like this romantic...
I don't know.
Brooding
I don't know. I haven't seen very much.
I used to watch Doctor Who.
Yeah,
yeah. When I was a kid.
Was it like a family thing? Did you watch it with your parents, or was it on your own?
No, I'm not thinking of the Sixth Doctor. What am I thinking of?
I don't know. The Seventh Doctor, brown.
Who are all the Doctors? This would be a good thing to have looked up, wouldn't it?
Well, I don't know. I maybe I know more about it than you. See, Gemma watched it a bit when she was little, yes. And I don't think it's the sort of thing you just tune into naturally. So I assume you must have watched it with dad or grandparents or something like that.
Oh, I remember this Doctor.
That's the Seventh Doctor you're pointing at there.
And this romantic one is the one I'm talking about.
Oh, Paul McGann. So he's the one from the '96 TV special that was co-produced, I think, with BBC America, and it was very kind of slick. That really was the first. I think that was the first episode of Doctor Who I watched, because they made such a big thing about it being brought back for that one-off special in '96. I was 13 at the time, so everyone was talking about it. I thought, this sounds like the sort of thing I like. I like Red Dwarf, so I guess that means I like sci-fi things. And I watched that episode, and I wasn't particularly impressed with it. And
no, I don't remember.
It was very swish and snazzy and American, and they had an American master in there, and it was just a bit too slick for me. I think I prefer my British productions a bit wobbly and cardboard
I like to literally see the set wobble when the door closes.
Yeah, and that one wasn't like that. So I was like, okay, well, I've given it a try. Maybe Doctor Who's not for me. And then 2005 rolls around, and this was the big reboot with Russell T Davies as the producer in charge of it. Again, huge publicity. This was when I was in my final year at university, so in year 4 of university, and I gave it a try, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was amazing. I remember I always used to watch, I think I might have watched the episodes with you, because that was when you were living at your mum and dad's house, and I would come to your house for the weekend, would watch the episodes, then I'd go back to the university halls of residence and watch it where I'd taped it. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was like, not really like anything I'd seen before, because even though, I said I like sci-fi things, I was never a Star Trek fan, or I didn't watch Star Wars, I didn't watch anything really to do with time travel. But I loved the idea of the time travelling alien. I thought that Billie Piper was such a revelation in the role of Rose. We'd seen her growing up as songstress, hadn't we?
Oh yeah, she was like our version of Britney Spears.
Yeah, she was. She absolutely was. And I think when she was cast as Doctor Who, there was a lot of skepticism. Cast in Doctor Who. There was a lot of skepticism about, hang on a minute, this is just a bubblegum pop star. Acting. I don't know whether she'd done any. She might have done a little bit.
Maybe she probably did an audition. Maybe, I don't know.
But I thought she was absolutely fantastic.
She was really great.
And I loved the heart in the series. I loved the fact that one of the things that I think made the reboot a bit different was they included the family more, and they going about their normal lives, because you had Rose's mum and her boyfriend Mickey. You got to delve more into their lives. I thought the episode in the first series where they go back in time and she sees her dad being hit by a car.
Yeah.
God, that I think the moment that I was like, I love this. And I think that Billie Piper is amazing as Rose, is when she's standing there at the side of the road with the Doctor next to her, and she's like, oh God, this is it. And like they hold each other's hand, and then they see the dad getting run over, and then it's all about going back in time, trying to prevent it. I loved it. And then by the end of the series, when and they had all the Daleks coming back. I was like well into it, and I'd go on the forums and read about it and looking for all the theories about what was going to happen next. But that was the one series that Christopher Eccleston was in, wasn't it? Because after that, we had David Tennant for a few years. Billy Piper stayed the companion for a little while. Then you had Martha Jones coming along, Donna Noble.
Donna's one of my favourite companions of all time.
Tell us more, because I feel like I've been stealing the limelight from you at the moment.
Christopher Eccleston, I think, Christopher Eccleston was like really good as the Doctor, because he was kind of scary, wasn't he?
Yes, he was an angry Doctor.
He was like
he'd been scarred by war.
Yeah, I thought that was fantastic. And then you get David Tennant, who's like the more quirky, unpredictable one, and then Matt Smith, who was obviously, I feel, more childish and playful.
Yeah, David Tennant was a bit more of the sexy Doctor as well, wasn't he? But he was very commanding. David Tennant, what a brilliant actor. He was brought in. He was quite famous for Casanova before,
well,
I think, wasn't
he? He wasn't famous for it, but
I remember when he was cast.
That was the only major role he'd had. I think.
So this was everyone a real breakout.
Because I remember seeing the promo image of him before he was cast in Doctor Who, and nobody knew what he was going to look like as the Doctor. Just seeing him lounging about, which is kind of funny, really, because Nikuti Gatwa was in Sex Education, and they're both kind
I've seen pictures of
raunchy.
him lounging about as well. Even raunchier, I have to say. I can't. Yeah. So
I like, but as far as companions go, that I don't. That hit or miss sometimes.
Some of them are.
I thought Donna was my absolute favourite, because I loved Catherine Tate before she was in the show. I don't know.
We will get to Coronation Street soon, everyone. Don't worry. I assume you like this kind of chat.
Maybe she was one of the most famous companions
before joining.
Like, that a lot of these names here were
I can't,
very
what's the name who
talented.
played Martha? Something Freeman or something? But no, she wasn't known before Doctor Who, and I don't believe she's gone on to huge things since then. She was definitely nowhere near up to Billy Piper.
I mean, maybe what's his face? Cockney.
Bradley Walsh.
Yeah, he was.
Who we will also be talking about as an ex-Coronation Street actor.
He's fairly big before he was.
You're right. The thing with Donna, with Catherine Tate playing Donna, it's that my mind was changed on her so much, because she'd come in for that Christmas special, hadn't she? I think the third Christmas special, was it the second? I can't remember. The Runaway Bride, and she was this loudmouth, chavvy, obnoxious.
Yeah, but I liked that.
I didn't like her at all in that. I thought the story itself there wasn't that great. It was the being with the spidery queen,
where they were looking at each other through the window at one point.
No, that was
a different one.
That was the moment that made me like, I think she's brilliant. That was the first episode of Series 4, which also had ex-Coronation Street actor Sarah Lancashire in the villain's role.
Oh yeah.
The bit where Donna and Doctor reunite, and they're looking at he's like outside a window, isn't he? And she's in through a room through another window porthole, and they're charading to each other. That was one of the best comedy moments on Coronation. I'm sorry, on Doctor Who. And from then onwards, I'm well in, and she was. Oh, I just love her.
I've definitely fallen off Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I found it hard to follow, and I'm sorry if you're a Doctor Who fan.
I think there are some listening. I'm just saying, like,
I feel like my golden era was stuff to do with Riversong, stuff to do with the library, Donna Noble, Matt Smith, and David Tennant, my favourites. I actually did like the New Year's Eve episode recently.
Which one was that?
The one that they did at New Year's Eve, where they went back in time and kept going back. You didn't like that one as much as I did.
I don't even remember that one.
It was set in a storage facility.
Oh, vaguely remember that.
I like that one.
No, I didn't. Was that a Dalek story?
I don't remember. The standalone ones I like. I can't get too invested in that ongoing lore, because I miss bits, and then it's like.
I've been hit or miss with that. So for the series 1, where there was the whole bad wolf thing, and that those words were appearing in the background and characters are saying, I was really invested in, what could that be?
More coherent to me than some of the future things that have happened.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I'm not saying that it's bad, or that, I'm just saying personally.
Yeah. Yeah,
As a
everyone's going to
casual
have things
viewer.
that they like more or less. I mean, there's an awful lot of the new series of Doctor Who. I can't say anything about the old series. I really can't. I've seen Genesis of the Daleks, and that's almost it. But of the new series,
I like Sylvester McCoy. I just remembered
that's
that.
the one that you
Sylvester McCoy and a guy who was a cricket man.
I don't.
As a child, I must have been what? I must have been like, you know, from birth to about 7 or 8. I don't remember a great deal.
I would say in the first
things.
6, 7 series of the new Doctor Who, there was an awful lot of hits for me, but there were definitely some misses. There were weeks when I was like, oh, I'm not so fussed about this, the villain I'm not as interested in. But on the whole, I was kind of along with the ride, and yeah, every week was pretty good, and some were completely outstanding. I thought that the transition after Russell T Davies left as producer to be replaced with Stephen Moffat was handled really well. He came to the series very highly regarded as one of the writers.
Women in the Fireplace.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that the name of the story?
Yeah,
The Woman in the Fireplace.
The one with old what's-her-face in France and the
What's her
Clockwork
face?
Robots.
Who married him?
No, you're thinking of Georgia, what's her face? Georgia Moffat. She was in the Doctor's Daughter episode.
Listen, I think it's important that I represent the voice of those who don't know what they're talking
and
about.
I'm the voice of those who know a little
God.
bit more than nothing that they're talking about. But I know that. No.
Sometimes things amalgamate.
So
in my mind.
the transfer into the hands of Stephen Moffat was done really well. And that first episode with Matt Smith, the young Amelia Pond, the episode itself I didn't think was so good, but the idea of him going back and being like the Raggedy Man, which was the imaginary friend that the young Amy Pond had in the past. Karen Gillan was really good. No Donna Noble, no Billie Piper, but she's definitely number 3 on my companions list. I thought that the Amy Rory companion duo,
that was a really interesting thread.
Well, the very end scene of that first episode of series 5, which was she'd gone off with the Doctor, and then it goes back to her house and you see her wedding dress hang up, and it's like she's left to go travelling time and space on the day before her wedding. That was brilliant to me. They had a few. The series 6 was good as well. I think it was 6, where they had the episode where they go to America and the Doctor gets shot at the beach. Do you remember?
Which Doctor was this?
This is all Matt Smith.
Okay.
He's shot on the beach, and then you see his body get burned up, and the whole mystery throughout the series is how are they going to get to that. I promise we did enjoy that. We were really into that. That also had the silence aliens, which were those grey-looking aliens who, as soon as you saw them, you forgot they existed. Do you remember?
No, I can't remember that.
Yeah, nice. and there were the scenes where Amy had tally marks on her faces because she would tally off every time she.
There's some really amazing
smart
stories.
Stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
but equally, like I said, lots of stuff that just didn't do it for me.
I can't say that many things that happened with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor.
Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, I didn't
really
enjoy. I wanted to like her because I'd fairly liked Peter Capaldi's Doctor as well, after Matt Smith, because he was such a brilliant actor. He was dark and brooding and angry and made such a change from the childlike buffoonery of Matt Smith Doctor, who I'm going to say Matt Smith Doctor is my favourite Doctor.
Nice.
I'd got a little bit sick of Tennant by the end, just a little bit. But Matt Smith, he was still amazing. I love them both.
I don't know, I couldn't rank them. I don't.
But you've got to, Gemma, and that's part of being a Doctor Who fan.
What now?
No, we don't have to.
Okay.
You don't have to. Sorry, I'm prepared. But Peter Capaldi, he came in, and there were bits that I liked. I think the stories had started to get a little bit darker there. I found them more complicated to follow. I'm not very good at following things. I would go through episodes and go, that was okay, a little bit more than, wow, that was amazing. But I will say that one of my favourite ever episodes of the new Doctor Who came as part of Capaldi's run, which is the Heaven Sent episode. Now that's the one that you might remember. Gemma's shrugging, so let me refresh your memory. This is the one where he's on his own in a castle and he's being stalked by something.
I watched that more than once.
That's probably the one I've watched the most. It is so clever. It's pretty much just him and this like death-like creature that's stalking him, and he finds himself to a room. And he's punching at a wall, and then he gets killed, and then he gets brought back, and the millennia pass, and he's finally able to punch his way through the wall, and then he gets to Gallifrey, his home planet, at the end. That was such a monumentally amazing piece of writing. I remember watching that thinking, this is absolute peak.
Because you could follow
Doctor
it.
Who. I could follow it. They were just going round and round again. So if I didn't understand it at one point, I could understand it at least by the fourth or fifth time round. And then there was a bit more of him. I didn't really rate Clara as a companion. I'm going to say, sorry, Jenna Coleman
she's
fans.
A fan favourite.
I know, she really, really is. I just found her
I
found her very smug. And there was even a thing made of, me and the Doctor, we're equals. I felt with her, and I didn't like that. I thought that she was just a little bit too big for her boots, and I was glad when she went in the end. I absolutely rated Jenna as an actress.
Yes.
I think and she's also voices a character in one of my favourite games ever.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. But I didn't. I wasn't sad to see her go. And then after that we had Bill. And then we had Nardole, played by Matt Lucas, for that one series, and then it was sort of on the wane a little bit.
On a par with Catherine Tate as far as comedic kind of comedy legends in this country, but
as a Doctor Who companion, he really, really didn't work for me. He was too attempted to be comedic. I didn't find him funny. I do like some of the things he's been in, particularly Come Fly With Me. Check it out if you haven't seen it. We're not allowed to recommend it. It's not PC anymore. I love it.
No.
But it didn't work in Doctor Who. But there was still some River Song stuff going through there, and like you said, what did you like about River Song?
I'm talking too much. She lives backwards, or she didn't really. We've just got to see random things, and
a fellow time traveller that he would meet out of order was a really clever concept.
That was a really clever idea, and then her secret identity being revealed. That was great,
and the whole romance that was built up between them. The spoilers.
At one point, there was something that happened where somebody died, and then they kind of talked their way out of it.
Probably Rory.
And that's when I kind of disengaged from the whole thing, because I thought, you can't be cheating me. If I'm sad because somebody dies, I want that to be proper and final, and not have. I think it was.
I've got a vague memory that one of the things that Stephen Moffat was slightly lambasted for was the "everybody lives" trope, which came from his episode with the World War II and the "Are You My Mummy" episode, which I think he wrote, and everybody came back to life. And he didn't like killing people off. That was still a good episode.
Yeah, but also the villains are great, but some of them, sometimes you watch an episode and it's like, here's a brand new villain, and it's really kind of convoluted and dull, and you think, oh.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you watch it and it's like, it's the Cybermen again. You think, oh.
Yeah. I think,
not that I'm criticising anything specific, but
I wouldn't say
it's really hard to create a properly iconic Doctor Who villain. Like the Angels were cool.
That was a Stephen Moffat creation.
That
was one of the biggest, well, probably the most memorable new and likeable new villains in the new series, because they like to bring back the old ones. I think at first they were a bit hesitant about bringing new villains back, apart from the Dalek, and they only appeared a little bit before the end. But the angels being the statues that would only come to life and come at you when you weren't looking.
So scary.
Very clever idea, and brought in an episode that was very Dr. Light as well. He was kind of sent back in the past, and most of the action was some just rando characters.
I think I like because you've got two things, Doctor Who, don't you? You've got the histories thing and you've got the sci-fi thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any particular one that I would prefer more. It all depends on the context and the story that goes with it, and whether it's something I know about.
So yeah, sometimes they'll go into a future, where humans are doing this, that, or the other thing.
Sometimes it's future miserable, and sometimes it's future fun, and sometimes future fun can be silly, and sometimes future fun can be really engaging.
I'm sure they've done this, but
I'm really would be quite difficult to please.
Interesting to see what the future of humanity is according to Doctor Who. Like on a timeline, like what happens? Yeah. There must be.
Well, very early on in the reboot, I think it was episode 2. It was when they go to the end of the world, don't they? And they're viewing it, and that's when it's got Cassandra, played by Zoe Wanamaker, who's the big stretch out piece of skin. The reboot. Yeah. And that sees the Earth get blown up at the end. But villains wise, I wouldn't say there's any particular villain that's like, oh, I love them. I want to see them back.
I loved. The one who took over who became the Prime Minister.
Oh, John Sim.
John Sim was so flippin' amazing, and in my mind, tell me I'm wrong, Coronation Street fans, he could be David Platt.
Do
you not think they're visually similar? And I can imagine if David Platt got the sort of the supernatural sort of powers that the Master has, he would cause as much chaos.
I don't think
and be as egotistical.
I don't think there's been a miss with the Master.
No.
I think that John Simm's Master in his final appearance, which was I think also David Tennant's last one, was he'd gone a bit weird by then. It was when like the whole world was John Sims all over the place, and they made him a little bit too superhuman.
Well,
but he was a brilliant actor, and he was so nasty,
bombastic, and having just a maniacally wonderful time.
Yeah, being
one
evil.
One of my biggest memories of watching it was the scene where he's on the spaceship and he's playing that Scissor Sister song. I can't decide if you should live or die. And I like that in that music in there. And then obviously Missy I loved Missy.
Oh, the female Master.
Yes,
she was so good, and that was huge shoes to fill after John Sim, and being the first female Master as well. She was so much fun. I particularly liked. There was lots of stuff with her I liked. I enjoyed an episode called The Witch is Familiar, I think, which also had Davros in, who a big villain from the show, and it took them a while to get him into it. I thought that Julian Bleach was it? I can't remember who played Davros, was fantastic.
Michelle Gomez played Missy, and she's also a comedic actress as well. I think
that was really helpful.
Doctor Who is a really great foster of British talent, of UK talent, and it's really lovely to see some of the people getting massive roles at,
Yeah. Who's the guy that they had playing the Master in the recent series? Because he was good. And lots of people I've seen have...
Sacha Dhawan.
Yeah. Lots of people have had a lot of good things to say about him. I thought he was okay. I thought he was good. I preferred the previous incarnations. I don't think we've seen enough of him.
No, I think he's really very charismatic.
The fact that he was tied up with the, I'm going to say, absolute disaster that was Chris Chibnall's Doctor Who era. He was the one of the only good things about this. So this was Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. I just didn't get on with her, and I was willing to accept a female Doctor. I thought she was okay.
Listen,
I hadn't seen her in anything else, but she kind of wound me up every time she called her gang fam.
I'm going to say this. You've criticised Jodie Whittaker's Doctor
can't stand her.
on our podcast, which is not even about Doctor Who before, and been accused of being misogynistic or in some way bigoted against women. And I'm just going to say, it couldn't be further from the truth. That is just such a nonsensical thing to say. And as a woman, I know that there were people that threw their toys out of the pram when Jodie Whittaker was announced, and it was very hurtful, actually, to hear people saying that, a sort of fictional sci-fi creature that could turn into anybody couldn't be a woman. I found that idea really offensive and sad that people said that. But if you're going to have watched all the episodes and say, I didn't get on with it, that's not misogyny. That's just having an opinion on something. And I know you, and I know that you.
Oh yeah, I'm just giving all about strong women. Isn't
exactly.
It?
I'm just giving a disclaimer here because it's a very tired. I
didn't enjoy the stories. I thought the writing was poor. I thought that it was far too preachy. I thought that it was overproduced. And the stories were weak. I thought that the companions were dreadful, apart from maybe Bradley Walsh's Graham, I think it was called, the companion. He was all right.
Fun. Yeah, I liked him. I was really disappointed.
Yeah, it was just really,
but
really
they did as
dull.
good as they all tried really,
They did try. They did try.
The thing about
but
Jodie
it just wasn't for me.
Jodie Whittaker's Doctor was that I wasn't scared of her, and by no means, that there are so many scary women in the world. Like Michelle Gomez was sinister at times, and you thought she could do anything. She could blow up a planet, or she could stab you in the neck, or she could give you a cup of tea and a cake. Like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, I didn't ever feel like there was some kind of dark reservoir of kind of sinisterness, which is what I think the Doctor's really about. He's, at the end of the day, he's an alien, and I think the best bits of Doctor Who plays on that and makes you realise this character you've been watching for years and you love and you think is brilliant, you're never really quite sure. Like, because of the amount of times he abandons his companions and moves on. I think that's a really interesting trope. Something that is kind of tragic and sad and interesting and intriguing, because they have this super deep connection every time he kind of really, or she, they really connect so deeply with their companions and take them all the way through, you know, all the way through the world and show them the wonders, and it get excited, the Doctor, every time they get a new companion, because it's like seeing their world again fresh through someone else's eyes. But I think that with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, I just didn't feel like she was just too nice.
She was kind of nice. She didn't feel alien enough to me, or kooky enough.
Yeah.
She didn't feel like she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, but the thing is,
it never felt. It often didn't feel like it was her that was saving the day. It was some of the others. That's the boring Yaz.
Okay, and like many times the Doctor didn't know what they were doing. That's part of the story. A lot of the time is that the Doctor's like, "What the hell's happened here? I'm not. This is where I didn't want to be here," or "Oh my gosh, we got to get out of this," or whatever. But
I always felt that they would come up with a plan, and I just very rarely felt that about Jodie's Doctor. There were some good episodes. I think I enjoyed the first couple of the Flux mini-season, but on the whole, didn't work for me.
Right, but very excitingly, Michael, we can have to bring this to a close we can talk about
Coronation Street.
So why are we talking about this? Because it's the 60th anniversary, and we're getting David Tennant back again. So 3 episodes with Donna Noble.
Yeah, which to me is a joy. It's a dream. I'm ever so slightly apprehensive because it's been a long time since those two have been in it. Donna Noble's it's not her last episode, because she did come back a little bit for a special, but her proper last episode, which was the end of series 4, when the Doctor has to wipe her memory. That was the most heartbreaking thing ever. At the end of the episode, and he like puts his hand on her brain, and she's like, "Oh no!" And then she goes to visit. He goes and visits her in the house, and he's like, "I'm going, Donna," and she's like, "Yeah, bye then." And because she's completely forgotten him. Oh, that really got me.
That's what I mean about the companions and the sadness and the transitory nature of being. Like, one minute you're the absolute right-hand man of this time-travelling alien, and the next minute he's like, bye! Yeah.
And also, some of her great episodes were with Bernard Cribbins, also ex-Coronation Street, which I've forgotten to add on the list later, actually, as her granddad. I've got a feeling, and I know he died. He's died. I think he's in these new ones for a little bit. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I've got really, really fond and precious memories of the Doctor and Donna together. So I'm just a little bit apprehensive that 15 years later is that, I don't know. It could be not so good.
Time goes, doesn't it?
It really does. But I'm looking forward to it, and very much with what the future holds for it. We've not talked about Coronation Street at all so far, but you know what you're letting yourself in.
It's easy to compare the two though, because they've been around. You know, they both were created in the 60s.
They were. Coronation Street has just pipped it as coming out for a few years before.
Enduring national, some might say international institutions.
Yes.
You know, there's a rivalry between the BBC and ITV, obviously.
Well, yeah, even in the 80s, Doctor Who was airing opposite Coronation Street, and I think that's one of the many reasons why they ended up deciding to put it on hiatus in the end. It just wasn't getting the ratings anymore. But I would say, you know, looking at it these days, I would still say that Doctor Who is the bigger show.
Of course it is.
It pains me to say it, I suppose.
Doctor Who is by far the biggest show here, because
it's the more internationally loved.
It's more international. It's got Disney money now behind it. It's going to become even bigger, if that's even possible. The thing is that Coronation Street suffers a little bit from over familiarity. It's on every week, every other day during the week, and so people take it for granted. If Corrie, you know, was a bit more, what's the word? If it was just, you know, maybe a limited run every year for 60 odd years, I think it might have a bit more kudos, and
Yeah, possibly.
You've
got to properly
be invested
in Coronation
You can't dabble in Corrie, really.
But yeah, Doctor Who's known all around the world, and it'll make appearance. Shows will reference it, and there's fan conventions everywhere, and
you can watch one episode of Doctor Who. You can't watch one episode of Coronation.
There's so much merchandise. There's the
you don't get any
fan
conventions figures.
No, there's nothing like that for Coronation Street. So Doctor Who wins out there. I'm gonna say.
I don't think it's a question.
No, I know. I mean, ratings wise, well, I'll be interested to see how Doctor Who does when it comes back. I think it'll probably do better than Coronation Street is currently doing, but there were definitely times, I think, in the new era that Corrie was rating more highly than Doctor Who. But now Corrie's obviously gone down. There's going to be a big hurrah about Doctor Who coming back, but it's not really about ratings, especially. But we say that you got to be really, really invested if you're a Coronation Street fan, but there's so much like extra media if you're a Doctor Who fan.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to delve down that rabbit hole, you can go an awful lot further, I would say, than you could do with Coronation Street.
Well, it depends. Yeah,
there's books,
if you're not
there's
talking
comics, there's games. There's
podcasts and audiobooks and plays.
There's an awful lot of audio episodes, and the Big Finish do audio extra episodes. So, for example, the 8th Doctor, which was Paul McGann, came in for that 96 special, but he's done loads of adventures as the 8th Doctor, just in audio form only.
Yeah.
So you can be an absolute nerdy, culty, and I say that being one myself, fan
super obsessed
of Coronation of Doctor Who. There's so much that you can do. Whether it's with Coronation Street, you can watch the show. There's a few books,
well, you can watch,
and that's kind of about it, isn't it? You can watch the whole. Yeah, that counts for a lot.
But that's and there are plays, and there's the believe it or not, the soundtrack. The musical soundtrack. Yeah. And
I don't think that if they did a Coronation Street spin-off book, there are a few Coronation Street spin-off books, but they're not as big as the Doctor Who ones. If they decided to do extra Coronation Street comics or things like that, I don't think they'd find the same audience at all.
I don't know if you tried to compare Doctor Who and Corrie in their heydays. I don't know which one you'd say.
Yeah, no, I think
the thing is, it's America, isn't it? There's nobody cares about Coronation Street in America.
We've got some American listeners here.
I'm not calling you guys nobody, but you're listening to us because you haven't got anyone to talk to about it, right? But there's no significant cultural footprint in America for it.
No,
but there is for Doctor Who, which is why Disney's paying so much money.
And
to run it.
It's going to go huge from there.
And the other thing as well, which is kind of frustrating if you're a Corrie fan, is that Doctor Who has just, thanks to all this new money they've got an interest lying about, because of the 60th anniversary, they've got all the episodes online now. You can watch them.
Pretty much all of them, apart from the very first one.
The control, yeah. So you can't do that with Corrie. There are selected episodes. I mean, obviously you can't because there's 10,000 episodes. But
there's all the spin-offs with Doctor Who as well, which, Coronation Street had a few spin-offs, but I don't think anyone's clamouring to stream, pardon the expression, or anything. Yeah, exactly, are they? And I think with all this Disney money, there's going to be more spin-offs and things to come, and that's right up Russell T Davies's alley, isn't it? He loves the wider universe of Doctor Who. And when he was in charge of Doctor Who, he put on Torchwood as the spin-off, and he did the Sarah Jane adventures. He really liked the Doctor Who brand, and I think that combined with Disney, this is the beginning of a new era.
Watch out to get very bored of Doctor Who. I think it's gonna be like Marvel.
Yeah, I wouldn't surprise me if that's.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's not going to be a movie, like a cinematic.
Yeah,
because we went to go see.
Yes, the Doctor Who 50th. We haven't even mentioned that yet.
See that.
So 10 years ago this week, in fact, Gemma took me on a surprise trip to see the Doctor Who 50th anniversary at the cinema, didn't you? We were at our friend's house in Chichester, and I think I was being a bit narky because I wanted to watch Doctor Who, and we were at their house, and I was like, we're going to miss it. I want to watch it live with everybody else. And then we all drove off, and I was like, where are we going? going and you wouldn't tell me, and then we turned up at the cinema and were able to watch that episode on the big screen, and that had Matt Smith and David Tennant together.
Yeah, it was good.
That was a really, really, really great episode, and it had Tom Baker appearing at the end as the museum curator. I loved that. And if the 60th anniversary stuff is half as good as the 50th one was, I will be a very happy fan.
I'm just telling you, there's no secret surprise.
No, are you sure?
For you,
you sure we're not going to go?
We're not going to have a special guest star on our podcast who's going to walk through the door now.
You haven't got Millie Gibson just lined up.
No.
Not that she's in these anniversary episodes. Should we properly move on to the Coronation Street Cross? This is where the bits where we're probably, this conversation, which is actually quite lively and fun, might turn into a bit of reading facts about things that happen, but we'll do our best.
Before we do, let me just say this fact you found.
Oh,
do you want to say it?
No, you can tell me.
I think this is fantastic.
Oh, there you go.
The Doctor Who theme is the third longest continually used piece of theme music in Western entertainment, behind only James Bond and Coronation Street.
Yeah, Coronation Street is up there at number 1.
So, isn't that amazing? Those three are just, again, I said if you could pick 2 things, I'd say if you added a third thing to represent what is British culture, what do we export to the world, James Bond is a pretty good example. And maybe if you mix the 3 up, you might get a glimpse of what it's like to be truly British.
So
an international time travelling spy that just spies on their neighbours.
This is what they should test you on in your citizenship test, isn't it? If you want to be British. Yeah.
What are the 3 best things we've ever done in the world?
So, Millie Gibson, let's talk our Mills. Let's talk about Amelia. Now, she's going to be playing a character called Ruby Sunday in the next series of Doctor Who, and part of my research for this episode was kind of going, oh yeah, and part of it was big surprises, and I'm hoping that there'll be some surprises for people coming that didn't realise, or people coming up for people that didn't realise things that I also didn't realise. But one of my surprises was that I'd completely forgotten that Millie's first episode debuts this Christmas. I was completely convinced that we would have to wait until maybe autumn 2024 to find out what Millie is like in her role as Ruby Sunday. By the way, I forgot to say, she played Kelly Nealon on Coronation Street. I am super, super excited. Also get a bit trepidatious, because I desperately want this to be good, but really, really excited to see how she is as a companion, aren't you?
Nobody can doubt her acting talent.
No.
Millie Gibson was one of the best newcomers in Corrie for years. Her performances, she's so charismatic, so much fun to watch, and they gave her some really challenging storylines. Yeah, and she did a fantastic job.
Snapped away from Coronation Street too soon, because there was time at the beginning of her era on Coronation Street when she didn't have as many things to do and she was just that teen. But I think once they realised they had something really, really special there with her, and they gave her, like you said, some really challenging stuff in the second half, with Seb's being kicked to death and the Gary story. Yeah, she was so good on Coronation
again,
Street.
I don't know who we're talking to here, because we might be talking to people that are Doctor Who fans.
If you're worried about, or if you're at all nervous about what she's going to be like, you don't worry about it. She is excellent.
Yeah, I can't praise her enough.
And she's a lovely person as well.
We
have met her a couple of times. We've sat and had drinks with her, and she's very, very lovely, and she's just the nice. And she's only how old is she now? 19 maybe?
She's so young.
She's so young, but very wise and super talented, and this is going to be loads of fun. She's really,
you guys are lucky. Doctor Who fans are lucky.
You're really, really lucky to have her. She's I don't know how long she's going to stay in Doctor Who. I mean, most of the companions stay 2, 3, 4 years. This is going to be the launch pad for her, because Karen Gillan's gone on to do Hollywood.
Gosh, I remember when Karen left Doctor Who, and there was a picture of her. She took a photo of herself with her head shaved, because she was going to play, I've forgotten the character's name.
Don't ask me about Marvel films.
Guardians of the Galaxy, and everyone's like, "Oh no, I can't believe it. She's been forced to shave her head for a sci-fi movie. her career's going down the drain. Oh gosh, what kind of stupid movie is this?" And then it's like, yeah, everybody, she's like a fantastic Hollywood actress now.
Yeah, I loved her in Doctor Who. She was so good, and I don't doubt that Millie Gibson's character Ruby is going to be similarly wonderful. Whether is she going to be up there
Nebula,
with Rose? Is she going to be up there with Donna? I don't know, but I really hope so. Because it's not just about the individual characters; it's also about how well they gel and the chemistry with the Doctor. So it's probably going to partly depend on how well I get on with this new Doctor. But I was
how well do you get on?
Do you remember when we found out that she was going to be on it? It was Children in Need last year, I think,
it was.
wasn't it? And
you were watching something else, and I was watching it on the laptop.
Yeah, that's right. And we were kind of interested to see who it was, but not like, whatever. And we weren't like gagging to see.
No.
And that they had a TARDIS on the stage. And then she comes out the TARDIS, and you showed me the laptop. We're like, look who it is. And I kind of thought, I don't know.
I turned it around and showed you. Yeah.
And I was like, who's that? Who's that?
I was like, have I gone mad?
Yeah, you're saying, have I? And then we both realised it was her. We just couldn't. We didn't expect it. We couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it.
Just, it
was surreal.
Yeah, and
literally, it was the most. If my mum had come out, I wouldn't have been. I would the same level of shock.
She talked afterwards, as you might expect, about how her phone blew up after that, and I contributed to that. I did send Millie a text message after that saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting!" And I messaged her mum. I DM'd her mum, who's also lovely.
Lovely. They're both lovely.
Very, very nice people, Millie and Paula, and. Oh, just incredible. And she's done a fair bit, well, not fair bit, she's done some press since. I think it's going to ramp up more around Christmas and the new year when the new series starts. But she says that she also grew up watching Doctor Who with her dad. She says that Matt Smith is her favourite Doctor as well.
Nice.
So excellent taste there, Millie. And it wasn't until her last day filming on Coronation Street that she found out that she was going to get the audition. And I think that was the period when we were up there, because we went
we met her the day that she got the audition.
No,
she had a party.
That's not the first time we met her, though, was it?
No.
I can't remember whether her last day filming was also her party day. I don't remember, but it was summer last year. And so she found out that she got the audition. She sent in a self-tape.
On her last day filming. So she left Corrie not having anywhere to go, which I think is really brave. And this is just kind of like if you wrote this in a movie, getting called on your last day filming Corrie, you got an audition to be a companion in Doctor Who.
Yeah, and her in-person audition, she had to do a self-tape, and then her in-person audition was on the day after Kelly Nealon's last episode of Coronation Street were broadcast as well. So it all tied in perfectly.
Oh, well done.
When she found out that she got the part, she was having a spray tan for the National Television Awards. So it's all fate and all. I don't know. I don't think they've revealed a whole lot about her. They don't want to start that new era and sort of take away any of the shine from the David Tennant Catherine. What's her name? Tate specials. But I am really excited about being really excited to be a Doctor Who fan again in this new series after the little blip we've just had over the last few years. And no offence to anyone who has enjoyed the Jodie Whittaker stuff. It's just, as we always say,
if you enjoyed it, then that's fantastic. And there's so many things that, everyone enjoys different stuff. It's fine. It doesn't make you a bad... I wish we would get away from the idea that it makes you a bad person if you liked or didn't like something. Right, so behind the scenes, there are some major people that have worked on both things, haven't there? So
we've got a few here.
Russell T Davies, I'd say, is kind of a major person, isn't he?
Yeah, so he was the executive producer and head writer of Doctor Who from the reboot in 2005. He did like 5-6 years or so on Doctor Who, and it was thanks to him that Doctor Who's reboot, well, partly thanks to him, that did so well. He pushed it. He did all these different avenues. He did the spin-offs. He was so passionate a Doctor Who fan. Such a clever man. He's like one of our top TV producers. He's gone on and done loads of other big things. Well, he had done big things before, like Queer as Folk, for example. But I think there's an awful lot of respect for Russell T Davies in the industry, and I'm really excited that he's the person that's heading the show now in its next era. I think it was about a year or so ago that we found out that it was going to be him who was running it. And I was so pleased that Chris Chibnall, who I didn't think did a good job as a producer, stepped down, and RTD, as he's known by his friends and everybody.
Can we call you RTD?
Yeah. I'm really, really glad that he's taken it.
I call him Russ.
Again, but...
And I do this with his head. I kind of like tussle his hair.
Can I also say... Russell T Davis commented on our Instagram.
That's why we're
this
friends
week.
now.
Yeah, because we got 50 minutes into the podcast without mentioning. Hope you like the Doctor Who themed cover image that we've got for our podcast this week. That I've made a duck wear Doctor's Fourth Doctor's outfit, but I put it up on Instagram. And thank you very much, Sally Ann Matthews. You're amazing. We love you. You added Russell T Davis in, and then he said, "Oh, amazing!" So that definitely made my Sunday night, having Russell T Davis comment on our Instagram.
Levitated.
But anyway, I've got huge respect for him. I was pleased to see him move over to Stephen Moffat, because I'd back in 2010. Cause I'd
over to Stephen Moffat
for Stephen Moffat, because I'd heard great things about him. But I'm so excited about him being back, and I think I didn't realise at the time that he had been working on Coronation Street.
I was going to say, why are we talking about him?
A little bit as well. Yeah, he was a storyline on Coronation Street back in the early 90s. But weirdly, and I don't know the story behind this, he was only there for 9 episodes in March and April 1993. Although having a look at the episodes that he was involved in storylining, there were some real classic scenes there. He was involved in the stories where Maureen came onto the show and was rekindling her romance with Reg Holdsworth, and then she takes him home to meet Maud, and we both love that scene where Reg goes to see Maud, and she's lost her glasses and doesn't recognise him until she puts them on.
That was good. Yeah,
that was partly down to Russell T Davis.
The concept, the storyliner is somebody that kind of puts together the story.
Yeah, exactly. So I assume that he had his hand in that pie finger.
Yeah, it didn't write the script, so it's different from a script writer, but...
Yeah, helping to say how's this going to work. It also had the beginnings of the story where Percy Sugden found that his ex-army mate, Nobby Clark, was dead. Not a huge story by any means, but I really enjoyed that. And that was what put him in touch with Nobby's widow, Olive, who Percy then had a bit of a candle for, and he proposed to, and she turned him down. There was also a bit of the Lisa Duckworth getting run over story in there. The gunman in Better Buy. All this happened in the space of like 2 weeks. So I don't know whether you remember when Andy was working at Better Buys and Jim was there as a security guard, I think, and a gunman comes in, and Jim gets scared, and Andy ends up jumping at him, and Reg and Maureen are off having a lusty date or something during this time.
Lusty date.
That's a very memorable scene for me. So it's quite cool that Russell T Davis was in charge of that. But the weirdest thing, his weirdest contribution, I would say, to Coronation Street history was writing the script for the 1997 spin-off of VHS, Viva Las Vegas.
Now that's top of the CV, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 years ago, I think we watched that. It was when we were doing our DVD rewatch of the whole of the Coronation Street history, and we got to the 90s, and we found, I think it's available on YouTube. I don't think we...
Well, don't...
I'm not sure if we found it by other nefarious means.
It's illegal.
And I'm not going to say that was Coronation Street's highest moment, but it saw the reintroduction of Ray Langton. It gave Tracy Shaw an opportunity to promote her new single on a Coronation Street themed thing. It was all right.
It was a show.
It was a show. It was bombastic. And the fact that RTD wrote it is just bizarre to me.
Okay. I like this. This to me is more bizarre because he also had planned a spin-off, like very sort of short series. 12 scripts were written for a spin-off with Kevin and Sally.
Yeah, so
in the 90s.
That kind of shows that he liked expanding the universe like he's done with Doctor Who, and his plan was to put together a Kevin and Sally spin-off.
I want to read these.
I'd love to read those. 12 scripts where they get into a bit of money, move down south, and we get to find out about their peculiar neighbours down there. Which included a Mrs. Mangle type woman, a boozy housewife. There'd be a pizzeria, a boisterous Italian family. So it feels like it got quite a way into the scripting process. But ITV were like, no, don't like that. But yeah,
this is interesting
just
to me
so
because
funny.
I'm really interested to know more about this because at what point were Kevin and Sally ever going to leave the show?
Well, I wonder, because if he was involved in Coronation Street in '93, this was 3-4 years before Natalie Horrocks landed herself on the street, and that relationship was completely blown apart because people were saying, well, the writers were saying that they were the safest couple on the street. So I don't think that the Rot was setting in with Kevin and Sally. I think maybe a little bit in by that time, but
Sally didn't really have a personality.
No, she didn't. Not in '93.
How did Russell T Davies write her? Because as we know her now as this,
snob.
Yes, a hilarious, unself-aware snob. She was nothing like that in the '90s.
Not until
she was
the
a
late
very
'90s,
mousy
early 2000s.
Mum, really. And it was kind of that Natalie Horrocks kind of ignited a fire.
That ignited a fire, and it was when Rosie got old enough to go and she became the pushy mum, and that's what they latched onto. So I'm not convinced that a Kevin and Sally spin-off would have been as fun as we might be expecting.
Yeah, if you're imagining current Kevin and Sally, if they were dating, if they were married, it wouldn't have been like that. So I would love to know more.
Yeah.
Anyway, also Phil Collinson.
Yeah, so he was producer of Coronation Street when our podcast started, and I think back then in 2012 we weren't really interested in who the producers were. We didn't really know very much about the behind the scenes stuff, and it was only about 3 months into the Conversation Street that it was announced that Phil Collinson was leaving, and we're like, whatever, what comes next? It was going to then be this. That then moved on to Stuart Blackburn, but yeah, he'd been producer of Doctor Who alongside Russell T Davies between 2005 and 2008. So I've not really thought too much about it before doing this, but having an ex Doctor Who producer producing Coronation Street, that's pretty big, isn't it? That's quite incredible. These days it's like either you got the same person that we've had for ages, like we've got for Ian McLeod, or they just recycle Emmerdale producers and put them up to Coronation Street. But the idea that producers can come from anywhere, and the BBC no less.
Yeah. I think we would have lost our minds if this had happened any other point.
I think, you're right.
Like if Russell T Davies became a producer of Coronation Street,
he's my dream future producer. He's very, very respectful. He's got lots of good things to say about soaps in general, and I think he would do a very good job, but I don't think he's interested in that.
No, I don't think so. But can we convince him? Maybe we can have a meeting.
Maybe if he listens to this, I don't know.
Maybe when he's done with Doctor Who.
So Phil Collins.
I'm just gonna say he's like a fans producer, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, Phil.
He's working.
Old PC.
He's working alongside RTD on the new series of Doctor Who as well.
Yeah.
But for Coronation Street, his biggest triumphs were the 50th anniversary celebrations. He was there from 2010 2013. So literally, this big ex-Doctor Who producer was put in charge. We need something big for the 50th anniversary. Off you go, and. Off he went, because as we all know, the tram crash episodes of Coronation Street were absolutely fantastic and filmic and brilliant. And
I saw we got a request to do an episode.
We did. We got an email review today.
And I've been telling you
this
for years.
Request to talk about the tram crash. So
I told you we should do
sometime. But
character profiles, but of stories.
Phil Collinson reintroduced Dennis Tanner, among others like Jim and Todd and Wendy. The Price family were down to Phil Collinson. You can't win them all.
No.
Kylie Platt came in underneath Phil Collinson's rule. The Tinkers did. So yeah, I don't know what more to say particularly, but I think it's just quite funny to think that a Coronation Street producer could be someone who's come from a show as such pedigree as Doctor Who.
Well, see, you said earlier which one's the biggest show, and you're giving it away by saying that I can't believe a Doctor Who producer's worked on Corrie.
Yeah, that's
Do you see?
True. If Ian McLeod moves on from Coronation Street to Doctor Who, are the Doctor Who fans going to be quite as wowed by that?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Maybe they will.
Now we're going to list people who were in. So there's
list and attempt to discuss.
Listen, right? There are actors who were in Doctor Who before they were in Corrie.
Yeah.
And there were actors who were in Corrie and then went into Doctor Who.
Springboard to stardom.
Now, This is kind of like if you did an episode about the Bill or Casualty, because they've been around for so many years. There are so many actors who've been in both of these things.
We can't do
We're
them
not
all.
talking about all of them, so don't write in and tell us we missed out somebody who played
like Bernard Cribbins is quite important, and I haven't written any notes
We're
about
selecting
him,
some people.
But he was great in both.
And you might be surprised to know that Helen Worth, that's right, Gail Platt, was in Corrie. Was in Corrie.
Got it wrong.
I was in Doctor Who before she was in Corrie. And these, just to remind everybody, all of these, mostly, 99% of these are available to watch. The Doctor Who episodes,
yeah,
so you can actually
out.
go and watch her play Mary Ash in Colony in Space in 1971. I think is it like a 3 or 4 episode?
No, it's more than that. We've seen 3 of the episodes. The way Doctor Who
An
works.
iguana molests a space colony.
Yeah.
That's the story.
What more? They're going to turn off the podcast now and go and listen to it, Gemma. Well done. No, the way that Doctor Who worked back in the day was that they would have serials that would last for 7 or 8 episodes, I think, on the same story. Whereas now it's mostly single episodes, but where you maybe get the odd 2-parter here and then. But yeah, Colony in Space was basically.
Hang on. I think it should be Colony in Space.
Colony in Space involved the 3rd Doctor. Yeah, John Pertwee, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
It was, yeah. Who was dressed up like an operatic vampire.
Yeah. Travelling far to the far future, where he landed on a planet which looked an awful lot like a quarry. And there was
maybe in Wales.
There was a colony there, and they were having a bit of an argy-bargy with the natives, weren't they?
Yes.
And they
were eating soup out of tin pots.
Gail, we only can talk more about this because we've literally just watched some of it in the last few weeks just to prepare us for this episode. We can't say we've done that for anything else.
A waif.
Yes, Mary Ash was very Gaelish in some ways. She was
just a nice young woman who
looked
like Gail Platt.
Looked like a young Gail Platt. She was very kind of delicate, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was like.
I think that as the serial goes on, she kind of has a bit more fire in her belly. We haven't seen it, and she's kind of saves the day in some ways. But she's very kind of plummy. She's not.
She doesn't have.
She doesn't have the Gael accent. She's just got a very nice, delicate.
My name's
Hello,
Mary
I'm English
Ash.
in the 70s kind of voice. It was really funny seeing her, and the fact that this came 3 years before she hit the stardom as Gail. It's a nice little sneaky snippety look into her
performance.
Previous
she's not
acting
been in
CV.
many things because she's been Gail.
She's been Gail, and once you're Gail,
why would you become
anything else? So very easy to check out. It might be, if you're interested, have a look on BBC iPlayer if you've got access to that, and see Gail before she was Gail.
Now Trevor George, who plays Ed Bailey, he was in the episode The Runaway Bride, which is when the first episode with Donna.
Yeah, this is the episode where I saw Donna and I didn't get on with her whatsoever, so I didn't look forward to the fact that she'd be coming back, how run I was. But what I didn't realise, and there were lots of surprises in this, obviously back then we didn't know that 15 years later we'd be enjoying Trevor George in his role of Ed Bailey, but he played the vicar who was marrying Donna.
Was going to marry her to somebody else.
Yeah.
Not get married to her.
No.
But she gets beamed into the TARDIS.
And he's like, oh my gosh, where's Donna Noble gone? A lot of these episodes we've not seen since they were first on. I've maybe seen a bit of that one. Gemma's mum, she'd Doctor Who us under the table, wouldn't she?
She should be on the show.
She watches them frequently on repeat,
just over and over
chronologically again. And then returns back to the beginning of series 1 with Rose again.
Yeah.
But so I may have seen bits of it. But yeah, he was the vicar in that.
He gets injured by a bomb from a robotic Christmas tree.
Yeah. So
and I'm gonna say, probably not as traumatic as some Corrie Christmases.
Yeah, very, very true.
Yeah.
Patty Clare. Now, she wasn't in Doctor Who, but she did appear in Torchwood, which was the racy Doctor Who spin-off.
Set in Wales.
I loved it. I like a nice Welsh accent, as you know.
It was. I really did it.
Torchwood. We didn't really talk about that at all earlier. The main star was Jack Harkness, wasn't it? Who was the space adventuring hunk.
Sorry, I just heard screaming.
Oh, well, it's just I didn't hear a scream, but I guess it's in theming with Doctor Who.
Somebody's excited about us doing this podcast.
Whoa, Captain Jack! Yeah, John Barrowman. So he was very popular in Doctor Who, wasn't he? So they gave him his own spin-off show, and it had it was set in Wales, and I can't remember any of the actors or actors.
Who was the one that was in
Bern Gorman.
He was in Corrie.
He was in it as well. He played
a cult leader.
He was the cult leader in
Nirab.
Coronation Street, wasn't he? And he played, I can't remember what the character was called in Torchwood, but he was a bit of a nasty piece of work.
Well, he was a complicated character, wasn't he?
There were lots of great characters in Torchwood. There was Yanto, who was Jack's boyfriend / secretary, maybe. There was Gwen Cooper, who
fantastic.
She's so good. I'd love her to come into Coronation Street. Eve Moyles, I think she was called.
She should be. We've been screaming out for a Welsh character on Corrie, and she would be great.
Very, very much
Phone
like
her
to
up.
see her in it.
Phone her up. Who's her agent?
Torchwood started well.
Well,
it had two series, and then it had the third series, which I think was the episode a day over the course of a week, The Children of Earth, which did very well. I liked it at the time. Then it just got a bit American, didn't it? And I think there were episodes produced set in America. And
it was like our version of the X-Files.
The main problem with Doctor Who, I found, was they kept killing off the main cast, and it's not like Game of Thrones where there's always Torchwood. They kept killing off the main cast, and it's not like Game of Thrones where there's plenty of other main cast just waiting in the wings. There was only a main team of 5 or 6 on Torchwood at the beginning, and by the time series 4 or 5 or however many it got to rolled around to Torchwood, there was basically just Captain Jack and Gwen Cooper left. And they were both probably the best characters in it, but it didn't work without the rest of the gang for me. Anyway, Patty Clare,
who plays Mary.
Yeah, Mary in Coronation Street. She played the character of Ruth, who was Gwen Cooper's husband's Reese's secretary, and you can see this on YouTube. The episode was called Meet, which I think I didn't really like that one so much. But she's there for like a scene, and that was just a little bit before Coronation Street. So you can go and check that out. Yeah, maybe.
Now, Michelle Collins, who is everyone's favourite landlady on Coronation Street, has recently made a triumphant return to EastEnders.
She has, yeah.
She played Catherine MacDonald in episode 42.
Yes, so not episode number 42. Sorry, I've just realised that I've got some incomplete notes coming up.
What does that mean?
In series 3 of Doctor Who, there was an episode called 42. I don't remember why it was called 42. Can you just Google who this person is that I'm pointing at, please? Yeah. So this episode, this is one of the ones from series 3 that I didn't really get on with. And like I said, there are definitely plenty of Doctor Who episodes that just don't particularly float my boat, but I'll enjoy it for what it is. And the concept of this episode was that she was the captain of a spaceship that was collecting energy in the future from a sun, not knowing that the sun was actually a living being, and they were really quite hurting it by drawing energy from it. And basically this creaturey sun thing pulls the ship towards the sun, and then there's a bit where some people got sun glowing out their eyes. I don't remember. I absolutely have not seen that episode since it first aired in 2007 or so. I didn't think much of it, but Michelle Collins, who later goes on to play Stella Price in Coronation Street, was in it, and she ends up sacrificing herself at the end of the episode by ejecting herself into space through the airlock, and that somehow saved her crew. I can't remember
Major character, she's the captain.
Yeah, so that's not particularly a case of before they were famous, which you might say about Helen, Trevor and Patty, because she was fairly famous before that, but it was still before Coronation Street, which is why I'm counting it here. Now, Fraser Hines is next. He was
in Corrie in between March and June in 1965 as Roger Wayne. He was Lucille Hewitt had a crush on him.
Right.
And in Corrie, this is a side note, he was married to Gemma Craven, who is who I am named after.
Are you?
Yes.
Really? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Interesting. Who was he in Doctor? Sorry, this is. I don't have notes for this.
Jamie
McCrimmon.
Who was actually a more episodes than any other companion.
Oh, okay. So that's quite an important companion.
He was a regular. So this was after he was in Corrie, but he was a regular companion for the Second Doctor between 1966 and 69.
Well, there we go. Thank you for that. I obviously wrote his name down at the weekend and forgot to do any research, but nicely smoothed over. Now, Mark Eden. This was a fascinating one for me. This was one of my bits on Sunday. I was like, what? Really? So Mark Eden is famous in Coronation Street for playing... Alan Bradley, Jenny's dad, famously hit by a tram in Blackpool, of course. But he played Marco Polo in the 4th serial of Doctor Who back in 1964. Now, this was the first time that a famous person had ever been, like a famous person from the past, was featured in a Doctor Who story, because I think the first story, do they go back to caveman times? I can't remember. And then there's some future ones with a Dalek. So the way Doctor Who is now is sometimes there'll be historical episodes, sometimes there'll be sci-fi future episodes. And this was the very first historical episode of Doctor Who, and Mark Eden played the titular character of Marco Polo, so that's really, really cool.
I'd say Marco Polo, don't you think his stock has really dropped in recent years? He's not as big a name in historical figures as he used to be.
No.
Don't you agree?
Who is Marco? I don't even know who Marco Polo
He's the man who invented swimming pools.
Oh, I thought it was the man who invented the mint with a hole.
No, he's the one who invented the game where you shout Marco Polo.
Sorry, I don't know who Marco Polo is. But he's a very important historical character. So important.
Michael, you're supposed to be
I spent flipping hours getting prepared for this episode on Sunday.
An explorer.
I can't be
in Asia, right?
I don't know. I've got really bad general knowledge.
He travelled through Asia.
Okay, fine. So the Doctor goes and visits him. Sadly, this is one of the episodes... He's
not on the curriculum, so Michael doesn't know.
I don't teach him. This is one of the episodes you can't see, and unlike Coronation Street, which has only got half an episode missing throughout its entire run, in a lot of the early years of Doctor Who are missing because of the BBC's policy to wipe tapes.
Just chuck stuff in the bin.
Yeah, once it's been on, why do we need to keep then? And there has been a restoration project, and there's been appeals trying to get people to raid their attics to see if they've got missing episodes of Doctor Who. And every now and then they'll find bits here and there, or find audio from them, and they've made animated versions of some of these early episodes. But Marco,
so frustrating.
Really, really is. I mean, I'm frustrated by the fact that
there's half an episode
of Corrie, but maybe that's the most frustrating thing, because when we started the podcast, we didn't even realise that, did we? It was only within the first few years of the podcast that it was discovered that this episode was missing. Oh. But anyway, this was the longest episode of the longest serial of Coronation Street, Doctor Who, that's completely missing, and I think it's the first. The earliest serial that's missing as well. So if you want to go and see what Alan Bradley was like before Alan Bradley, you can't.
And that is why Marco Polo has slunk into obscurity.
That's why I didn't know who Marco Polo was, because the episode's been deleted.
Exactly. How are we supposed to know?
There was also a scene in the episode apparently where he narrates over a scene. There's a map and it shows where they're exploring, and Marco Polo's character narrates, and that was the
Polo.
Exactly. And that was the first time that had happened on Doctor Who, and also one of the very few times that characters have narrated over the action. I know Jenna Coleman did it at one point. I'd really like to be able to see that, but sadly can't.
And he predicted the iPhone, and he told everybody to buy shares in Google.
No, he didn't. Stop it. That's confusing.
I can say what I like.
Stop taking advantage of my ignorance of some historical figures.
Right, Geoffrey Hinsliff.
Yeah, so this was Don Brennan in Coronation Street.
He played Jack Tyler in a 1977 story, Image of the Ferndale and Fish. Is that the whole title?
Yeah.
Image of the Ferndale and Fish.
Oh, no, he played a character called Fish. He was a human.
Michael, you didn't write this so I could write
it. You do the research.
So, no. And he also played somebody else. Michael,
he played a character called Fish, I think. In 1979's Doctor Who series Nightmare of Eden. Yeah, he was in it twice.
Okay.
He had brown hair. So that's a reason to watch.
And who did he play in Corrie?
Don Brennan.
Who only had one leg.
He only had one leg.
This is all going wrong.
We told you this would happen.
Okay.
When we get to the bit that we don't really know what we're talking about, this podcast is falling apart. But I enjoyed seeing a picture of Geoffrey Hinsliff with brown hair, and that's as much as I can say. We've not seen any of the episodes.
John Savardin.
Yeah, Nightmare of Eden. Was that a nightmare about Mark Eden? And,
yeah. I've deleted all the episodes.
John Savardin. Now here's somebody we know more about.
If I was an enterprising young actor in the early, last century, whatever.
20th century?
More recently than that.
21st
I would have
century.
said I was in Doctor Who, and they can't prove I wasn't.
Yeah, that's a good... Apart from the fact that they do have cast lists and
no, I'd just say they must have left it off, but I swear to God I was in it.
So John Saverdon famously played Fred Elliott. I say played Fred Elliott from 1996, 95 onwards to 2000
whenever. He
played the Squire in a 1982 episode of Doctor Who called The Visitation, and this was set in 1666, I believe. I've written 1966.
I was going to say that's not that historical.
No, it was in Stuart times, I think, which was I'm sure you can imagine absolutely perfect for the type of actor that John Saverdon was.
I think
he had a little beard.
He was built to be a sort of a rural land owning.
Yeah,
gentry,
he was born out
gentry,
of his time, wasn't he, John Saverdon?
He was killed by an android, as many people were.
Back in the 17th century, yeah. Haven't seen any of that, but I'd be quite interested to go and have a look at it. Go and check it out. This is just our recommendations list.
So,
Sean Gallagher. This was one that I didn't realise. This was another nice surprise to me. So he played Paul Connor in Coronation Street.
So that was Carla's first husband.
Yeah, exactly.
Who owned the factory. He was brothers with Liam Connor. They're all dead now.
Yeah, all dead. He died in a car accident with Leanne in the boot. But he had played Chip in the New Earth episode of Doctor Who, which was, I think, the first episode of series 2 of the reboot. So this was another one set in the future with Cassandra, the Zoe Wanamaker character that I mentioned earlier, that was a big old square of skin that was supposed to be the last human being alive. And Chip was like her clone slave, I think. And Cassandra, as part of the episode, ends up putting her consciousness into various people's bodies, including Rose's and the Doctor's, but then also Chip's. So Sean Gallagher has to pretend to be Zoe Wanamaker.
I want more money for Harry Potter.
That's
how I would do it.
If I was Zoe Wanamaker, I would be never shutting up about the fact that they cut me out of the Doctor Who films after the first one. I can't remember.
Who films?
I'm getting on with
Harry Potter
films. I'm getting on with franchises mixed up.
Now
but that one was a
Harry Potter's also quite a famous thing that was invented in Britain.
It was. Yeah, actually, that's a very good point, but not as old as Doctor Who and Coronation Street and James Bond. That had a really sweet end to the episode, because the whole thing with this Cassandra character is that she used to be a normal human being, and then she just wanted to get plastic surgery after plastic surgery until she was just a big sheet of skin.
Beautiful,
and then when she possesses the body of Sean Gallagher's character, they then go back in time, and she in his body goes and finds an earlier version of herself and says like, "Oh, you're beautiful as you are," and then he dies because of the trauma of the bodies intermingling and things like that. So and that was a lovely moment. But there we go. There's Sean Gallagher.
My question is, which show, Doctor Who or Corrie, has the more far-fetched story?
It depends who the producer is.
Which one is the hardest to explain if you didn't watch the episode?
I think that the people listening to this know what they're letting themselves.
They know what we're talking about.
Will Thorpe, Gemma.
So he played Chris Gray. So that's the guy who pretended he had a brain tumour.
He is, yeah.
So he's the one who was going out with the girl
Cheryl,
who was dating
Lloyd,
who played Lister in Red Dwarf, which is also another great British export.
Yes.
It's based in science fiction. Yeah. So he was in Corrie in 2010 to 2011, but he played Tobias Zed in The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit.
So this was a two-parter in series 2 of Doctor Who, where the
remake.
Yeah. Well, I'm always going to be talking about the remake, especially if I said 2010 and 2011 and dated it a bit. But yeah, this was an episode where I think the TARDIS ends up going and finds a planet that was near a black hole, and it was a bit unclear about why it wasn't being sucked into the black hole, and then it all turned out it's the episode with the devil. Do you remember there was a bit where Doctor goes underneath sort of with the inside a planet,
was
and
the
I
Doctor?
think Tennant.
Okay.
And there's this giant creature called the Beast, and the idea is that this big alien beast is what gave many cultures the idea of the devil looking like
because we couldn't have invented an evil
red
man
dude
by ourselves.
And Chris Gray, Will Thorpe's character was possessed by him, and there's a quite creepy scene where there's characters looking outside the spaceship, and he's there walking around on the planet where he shouldn't be able to survive, and then he turns around, he's got red eyes, and he's got these like runes drawn all over his face. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty good.
Scary.
Yeah.
Ian Reddington, what?
Yeah, no, I was going to move on to the
Ian
next one.
Reddington, he was Vernon in Corrie, but before that, he was the chief clown in a 1988 Doctor Who episode called The Greatest Show in the Galaxy.
So this was towards the end of the Doctor Who's first run's reboot, and are you going to find a picture of the chief clown, Gemma?
No, I'm looking up who the 7th Doctor is, because I can't remember.
Who's the one that you said earlier?
I know, but I don't know them by the numbers.
Sylvester McCoy.
Okay, I think...
Yeah.
Some people are listening who don't know, like me. If you say the 7th Doctor, who that is?
Okay, so we need to
so now
talk
I need
down
to look
to
up
people like you.
How rude of you!
I know, sorry, that came across really bad. Didn't mean it to. He played the chief clown apparently, and it seems like he didn't have to go far away from that in his Doctor Who in his Coronation Street role as Vernon Tomlin.
He does not look like him at all.
I know.
It's terrifying.
He tried to send robot clowns.
You can buy a figurine of him.
Oh, can you? Well, there you go. I hope he's got one on his mantelpiece.
It's $14.99.
Perfect. He sent a load of robot clowns to try and kill the 7th Doctor and Ace, his companion, but sadly he ended up being killed by a robot himself. Haven't watched that one, can't tell you anything more about it. Now here's somebody...
Hang on, there's a Doctor Who figurine collection magazine.
Yeah.
Part 147 features the chief clown, and their subheading is "Don't run away to this circus."
Oh, there we go. There you go.
I wouldn't want
sure
to.
Liz McDonald got that episode after her sad split from Vernon. Ruler Lenska. Now here's territory that we're more familiar with. Not what she did on Doctor Who. We still haven't seen it at all. But I hear that the resurrection of the Daleks is a fairly famous episode of Doctor Who from 1984. And Ruler Lenska, who would later go on to play Claudia Colby in Coronation Street, played a character called Elizabeth Styles in this episode, who was a medical officer and a survivor of a Dalek attack on a prison station where Davros, leader of the Daleks,
evil
progenitor of the Daleks, was being held prisoner. So it's
her fault then.
Yeah, exactly. She's partly his fault that he escaped, I suppose.
Yeah.
So she's there fighting against Davros, and there's some
cool... She probably used cool 80s karate.
I flicked through a few episodes with her on just incredibly briefly the other day, and she's there doing a bit of action moves, shooting her guns, and eventually she tries to activate the station's self-destruct mechanism to kill Davros, but was shot and killed herself before she could do so. There's an awful lot of characters here that get killed in Doctor Who, aren't there? Lots of people have died before going on to Coronation Street.
Oh, yeah.
What?
I'm just thinking, like, Doctor Who's definitely got a higher death count than Coronation Street.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon.
Well, there's usually someone who dies every episode of Doctor Who, and you can't say that about Coronation Street. That's true.
What would happen if it was?
Now, the last one on this list of actors who were in Doctor Who before Coronation Street is Sir Derek Jacobi.
Famous
Thesp. He played the Master. We talked about the Masters earlier, and he was the very first Master that then, in the reboot, that regenerated into John Sims' Master.
He's cool.
This was a really clever episode where Doctor and I think it was Martha Jones, it must have been at the time, end up at this place where I can't remember the background of it. I don't think I've seen this in 15 years or so. But there's this old professor guy there, played by Derek Jacobi.
An old professor guy.
Yeah, Professor Yana he was called. And at the end of the episode, in a brilliant twist, it turns out that he is actually the Master, the first time the Master's been in the reboot. And Yana spelt "You Are Not Alone," and that was a special message that the Face of Bo had given the Doctor. I'm sure you all remember that.
Yeah, I do. I think I remember thinking it was cheese.
But anyway, so he's been in Doctor Who, and in the Doctor Who Confidential episode, which was like the spin-off thing was it on BBC Three back then? I don't know. It accompanied that episode.
It's like behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think they're bringing it back for the new series. He said it had always been his ambition to be in Doctor Who and Coronation Street, and 5 years later he was in Coronation Street, although as only an extra in the Rovers.
That's amazing. 2012, he just appears in the background because he really wanted to be in Corrie so badly that he just...
We want to be in Corrie really, really badly.
I know, but we're not Sir Derek Jacobi, are we?
Not yet.
No, when will that happen?
when we regenerate into him, and then we'll become John Sim after that. Perfect.
Well, it makes sense.
So, switching over now to actors who were in Coronation Street before Doctor Who, top of the list for me is Maureen Lipman. Now, she was in Coronation Street and then in Doctor Who and then in Coronation Street as a different character, but her original
She's a Coronation Street sandwich.
She is. Well, she's a little bit like Doctor Who and the Doctor herself in a way, isn't she? She's regenerated from Lillian Spencer into Evelyn Plummer. And in between those two stints, she was in Series 2 episode The Idiot's Lantern, which was set around the time of the Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. So the Doctor and Rose go back in time to the 50s, and it's all about the introduction of
TV.
The popularisation of TV in Britain, because so many people bought one so that they could watch the coronation. The story goes in here that this character called the Wire is an escaped criminal from the planet Hermetica, who becomes some kind of energy being, transmits herself down to Earth and hides herself away through TV signals.
Yep.
And then she could people would be watching TV and she'd suck their faces off, I remember.
Yep.
There were lots of scenes of characters without faces. Rose gets her face sucked off, I remember. And her appearance on screen, it looked very much like Maureen Lipman, but it was based on I think the Muffin the Mule presenter from kids' TV when our parents were kids, but she kind of masqueraded as a continuity announcer in the episode itself, and
it's a really cool idea.
It was a cool idea, and I think I enjoyed that episode. I definitely enjoyed Maureen Lipman's performance of it, and I remember her going, "I'm hungry, so hungry," and I know your mum likes that as well, because she will sometimes quote that to me. The Doctor ends up saving the day by trapping her on a Betamax tape.
Was that not something, that little girl that's playing noughts and crosses with a weird clown?
Yes. The test card.
Did she get trapped as that?
Possibly.
On a Betamax tape.
Maybe. There's something in that episode about that, yeah. And the doctor says he'll tape over her just in case.
Here's an idea, in case Ross T. Davis is still listening, or anybody who's doing Doctor Who. A meta episode where Doctor Who is also not just a real alien, but a television show.
Did you just call the Doctor Who? Because that's a faux pas.
I'm telling you, I was thinking about this earlier because I knew we were going to do this episode. You can call him Doctor Who because
he was sometimes credited as that
he's called Doctor Who. Anyway, Doctor Who is also a television series like it is in real life, and they're trying to find the missing episodes, and they find a Betamax tape with her on it, and they play it and release her again.
Well, the Doctor says at the end of the episode he would tape over her, but I was also reading that in the comics, the canon goes that he forgot to do it, and then there's another little episode with the Wire in the comics. I thought that she was really fun in that. I mean, Maureen Lipman is obviously an amazing actress, and she was absolutely perfect for that role as
she's definitely got that 1950s watch with mother
absolutely. Now, did you know that Sherry Lee Hewson has been involved in the Doctor Who universe? Well, we should do, because I think we probably mentioned it on the podcast last year, but I'd forgotten. She's been involved in some of the audio dramas that we said that they also like to do on the side in the Doctor Who universe. So she's played a character just recently called Elise Kaplan in some audio dramas starring the 6th Doctor, which was the Colin Baker one, I think. Shoot me down if I'm wrong. I possibly am. I don't know. And so that's quite cool that she's had that side job to do. But when you're talking about Cheryl Lee, you've of course also got to mention her partner Toby, who played Fergus in Coronation Street, which was Izzy's neighbour and
slash romantic interest, who was a ticket
inspector. No, what was it? A parking attendant. Very sadly underused. When he was in it a few years' time, and he has done tons of work with Doctor Who, so it's no surprise that Cheryl Lee managed to get her foot in the door.
Really?
There. Yeah, well, I think, maybe he had something to do with it. So Toby is...
We follow him on Twitter. He's great. He does so much Doctor Who stuff.
Yeah, he's got his own Doctor Who podcast. But he's done a few in the past.
He's probably if he listens to this, he's shaking his head.
Hello, Toby.
Sorry.
We think you're great, and you know more about Doctor Who than us. But yeah, he's moderated a huge number of Doctor Who DVD commentaries. He was the Doctor Who consultant in the animated release of The Faceless Ones in 2020.
Oh, so was this a...
What?
Was this based on a...
This was one of the old 60s episodes that they
released an animated version based on the script?
Yes,
That's
yes,
so cool.
exactly. And he had a Doctor Who podcast called Toby Hadoke's, is that how you pronounce it? I think I'm right. Toby Hadoke's Who's Round podcast. Now, this was a podcast that ran from 2013 to 2019, and the idea behind this was that he would try and interview somebody connected to every single Doctor Who story.
So good.
And it was kind of a sporadic podcast. I haven't listened to any of it. I think that's a really clever idea.
Yeah.
That ended a few years ago, but he still has a Doctor Who podcast now called Time Travels, and this was started in 2020, and it's more of a general Doctor Who podcast in the same way that we are a general Coronation Street podcast, where they do episode reviews, and it does very in-depth analysis, deep dives, the sort of which we can only dream of in our very surface level commentary of what goes on in both Coronation Street and Doctor Who. But he really knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Massive Whovian. I guess Shirley probably likes it as well, so I think that's a
maybe
really
she
interesting
doesn't,
link.
and that's why he's got to do a podcast.
Yeah, because he's got nobody else to talk to about it.
She says, stop, record it, go to the other room.
Now,
Just joking.
My biggest surprise, and this shouldn't really have been a surprise, but there are many things that I don't know.
Yeah.
When I was looking for Corrie Doctor Who links at the weekend, was William Russell. So Coronation Street fans from the early 90s will remember him as Ted Sullivan. And Rita was Rita Sullivan for a good long time, wasn't she? Because they got married then. But it was very tragic because got involved with her. He had a brain tumour. He didn't tell her. She decided to marry him anyway. There was a lot of fallout with the family. He famously, or maybe not so famously, I don't know, died at a bowls match.
Yeah.
He's just there sitting on the side, and then they find him and he's dead, and it's very, very sad. But he was a really lovely character. What I didn't realise until a couple of days ago was that he was one of the 4 original Doctor Who cast members. So he starred opposite William Hartnell in the very first episode, as for 2 series in the end, as companion Ian Chester. That blew my mind when I found out, because I enjoyed the character of Ted. I had no idea that I was watching the very first Doctor Who companion. And he's done loads of Doctor Who work since. For example, he's lent his voice to audiobook releases of some of the Lost 1960 episodes. He's in audio dramas where they've added extra episodes for his character. He's been involved with those. He's recorded readings of novelisations. All this time, Ted Sullivan, who'd have thought it? But the biggest mind blow of this was that I think it was last year, there was a scene at the end of Doctor Who where they got a load of the old Doctor Who companions together in like a support group scene.
Yes.
And this starred Bradley Walsh, who we'll talk about in a little bit, his character Graham with Yaz.
Wasn't the dog in it?
K9 was not in it.
Oh.
I don't know much about the old Coronation Street companions. I know there was one called Ace, was she in? I can't remember. I'm sorry, I don't know. Is there a Mel? But Ian was there as well. The character of Ian was there, and I was watching the scene going, I maybe recognise some of these faces. Oh yeah, there's Graham there. I remember him. And then this old guy is like, what did you say? The Doctor's a woman now? Or something like that. And I was like, I've got no idea who that is. But yeah, that was very bad of me as a Doctor Who fan, because that was the original actor playing the very first Doctor Who companion. And that actually broke the record for the longest gap between TV appearances of a character. So he played this character in 1964 and then again in 2022. Same actor, same character.
That's cool.
And interestingly, one of the other another actor who did break that record back in the day was Philip Lowry, I think, who went many years between playing Dennis Tanner in the 60s to then reappearing in 2008, 2009, wherever it was. But yeah, this guy broke his record by a good 14 years or so. And well, let's have a little shout out. It was his 99th birthday this past Sunday. So happy birthday, William Russell.
Well done.
And he was 96 when he recorded this episode. It's incredible.
Yeah, good
that
for him.
Absolutely blew my mind. Speaking of important companions in Doctor Who, one might say that from the classic era, there are none more so famous and beloved as Sarah Jane Smith.
Yeah, you liked her. They did a spin-off, didn't they? You watched it?
Yes, Sarah Jane Smith was played by Elizabeth Sladen, who was in Coronation Street for a few episodes in 1970. She played a barmaid at the Flying Horse pub called Anita Reynolds, who ended up dating Len Fairclough. We've not seen any of this. They go on a double date with Elsie Tanner and Alan, and although Len has a few doubts about the age difference between them because he was basically as old as her mum and dad. He ends up proposing to her and they accept, but then she accepts, but then gets cold feet and pulls out. So I'd really quite like to see this because I really rate Elizabeth Sladen so much. And the reason I care more about her is because they did bring the character back as partly of Doctor Who. She was in a couple of episodes of the reboot. There was an episode called School Reunion, which also had what's that guy? What's the librarian dude from Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Oh, Giles.
Yeah, his actor was playing
Anthony Head.
Anthony Head. He was playing this evil headmaster that was actually a monster in disguise.
Yeah, he was good
in a school. He was very, very good in that. But yeah, the Doctor reunites with Sarah Jane Smith after many, many years, and I absolutely fell in love with this character. She was so intelligent, she was adventurous, she was sweet, such a good actress, and all the spin-offs that they did with her afterwards. Well, no, the one spin-off they did with her afterwards, the Sarah Jane Adventures, was quite fun as well. I wasn't the intended audience for this because it was a kids program on children's BBC, but I still watched. I think I recorded it or watched it on BBC iPlayer, and it was basically a story about her and her adopted alien or clone son, I can't remember, and his mates at school solving these Doctor Who light kind of mysteries
with a robotic dog.
With the robotic dog K9, exactly, and a special talking house or something, I can't remember. But it was very, very good, and for a kids program. It was really high budget, and there were some episodes of that stood side by side with some great Doctor Who episodes as well. Really tragically died in 2011. She was only 65, and I think they were part way. That completely caught everyone off guard. I remember finding out about that and being completely, utterly gutted and blown away by this awful news. They were part way through filming an episode of a series of Sarah Jane Adventures, and so when that series eventually aired, there was a very kind of quick tying up of it, and they did their best with what they could. But she was so wonderful, and I think she gave off this really beautiful maternal energy. Yeah, she just seemed like really safe and charismatic but so kind of boisterous and energetic and clever, and
yes.
She's I would say as a non-watcher of the early years of Doctor Who, she is the most beloved early series companion. Of course, everyone's got their favourites, but she's the name that stands out. And the fact is, she got her job in Coronation Street first. So
yes, you're welcome.
You're welcome for that. Now, at last, Bradley Walsh, she's the next one on our list, played Danny Baldwin in Coronation Street in the early 2000s. Quite a fun character.
The Baldwins were an interesting family because obviously Mike Baldwin was one of the major characters in Coronation Street for a while, and they decided to bring in his extended family, didn't they?
Invent and bring in his extended family as part of the storyline to Johnny Briggs's exit storyline.
Yeah, but he was most recently in...
Sorry, am I picking up the sentence?
Doctor Who, which is the show we're talking about.
He played the character called Graham O'Brien. So he was in series 11 and 12 of Doctor Who, which were the first two series of the Jodie Whittaker era.
He was my favourite companion of Jodie Whittaker.
There wasn't much competition, really, was there?
Some people like
some people like Yaz, some people like
the other one.
Ryan, is it? But he just had the exact same charm and energy and charisma.
He just comes in as Bradley Walsh. Like, I know he's a good actor, but I don't think he plays outside.
I don't know. We haven't seen him in anything else where he's playing something vastly different to basically Bradley Walsh. But he's also
Why would you?
he's well loved by the mums because he does that chase quiz show, doesn't he? Yeah. Well, I've spoken with a few Corrie actors who talk about wanting to be on the chase because they kind of fancy Bradley Walsh a little bit. But he was definitely one of the shining lights in that particular string of series of Doctor Who.
He's the oldest actor to play an ongoing companion.
He was. He was just a lot more grounded. He was like the granddad of Ryan, wasn't he, I think? And they had a quite nice relationship. It kind of wound me up a little bit how he would call the Doctor Doc.
Yeah, I didn't like that. That was kind of annoying.
Yeah, he
What's going on, Doc?
And it was kind of interesting to see when they were going through time, especially in history, that he was the character that the people of the past would often be more respectful of, because you got Jodie Whittaker as Doctor Who as a woman, and then you had some people. No, they didn't. But he was all right, and that there was a sweet relationship with him and Ryan, and about Ryan being able to. He was dyspraxic or something, wasn't he? And he couldn't ride a bike, and there were some nice last scenes at the end where they go off riding a bike in the mountains. And
then they die.
Yeah, so he in the end, Graham's character and Ryan, they just decide to stay on Earth. They don't die, but that was quite cool as an ex-Coronation Street actor hitting the big time in Doctor Who.
Cool.
Do you want to do the next one?
Bruno Langley, who played Todd.
Before Gareth Peirce played him, the original Todd.
He played a computer genius called Adam Mitchell in the first reboot series.
Do you remember him being in it? No. It's alright to say no if you don't remember.
If anyone's confused as to whether I remember a lot of this, the answer's no.
It's okay.
I'm not pretending.
No, it's fine. You don't have to pretend.
Lie.
I remember.
I've only seen some of these episodes, and some of them I haven't seen at all because I was in the room not paying attention because I didn't
really
enjoy
into
some
it.
of them.
Yeah,
I watched them when
we definitely watched this, but this was 2005 that Bruno Langley was on it, so you're forgiven for forgetting him.
In this and then Corrie.
He was in Corrie first, then he was in this, and then he went back to Corrie, and then he stopped being in Corrie. So yeah, he played this guy called Adam Mitchell, and the episode was Dalek, which was I think I
remember the concept.
It was set in the far future world of 2012, and this is the one where this evil American called, I think, Henry Van Statten has got a Dalek.
I do remember.
Chained up, and the Doctor is led into a room with him, not realising he was being trapped with a Dalek, and this was the Christopher Eccleston Doctor.
Time and he would relate it to somebody. No,
I don't think so. But yeah, the Doctor's like, oh no, it's a Dalek, you gotta let me out.
I remember this.
And anyway,
so you asked me specific people. I don't remember Adam Mitchell, character from Series 1, episode Dalek.
He ends up sort of going away from the bad guys and joining Rose and Doctor in the TARDIS. So he's a companion for like 2 episodes, maybe. The follow-up episode was one that I really enjoyed called The Long Game, and that had Simon Pegg playing this business guy, and there's a big alien on the roof that eats people.
That's not good for business.
But I really enjoyed that episode, but I think it's as part of that episode, the character of Adam gets a little bit too selfish and decides that he's going to, and who wouldn't do this? He's going to go give himself... He's going to he sends a phone message to the past with loads of secrets in the future.
That's what I do.
With the hope of profiting from them when he goes back from the past. And the Doctor realises that he's not quite fit for Team TARDIS.
Only I can profit from time travel.
Because it's not about self-gain. And
of course it's not. When you've got a flying time machine that's as big as you want it to be, and you can change anything and go anywhere
what more is there
and
to
do
gain?
Or eat anything, ever. As you can tell, I'm quite motivated by food. What? Of course, you wouldn't.
If you were a time traveller, we could just go back and eat things.
Yeah, I would. I'd go back.
I don't want to see any historical events. I just want to try things from the past.
No. I'll go back to great banquets of the past, or like famous chefs, like Escoffier. Oh, let's see what Romans used to eat.
Dormouse.
Yeah, I would love to see Dormouse drowned in wine. Wouldn't you love to see what people used to eat?
Yeah, maybe, but I am quite fussy. Anyway. the most memorable thing for me, I really enjoyed the character of Adam, and when he joined the team, I was like, oh, this is good. An old Coronation Street actor who I really enjoy, Todd, he's going to be in it. But then he gets kicked off the next episode, and it's really sad. And the most memorable thing about it for me was that he gets an implant put in his forehead, which opens his forehead up with do you remember this? There's like a circle that opens up with a cross down the middle, and then you can like put a jack into your forehead and have information downloaded into your brain from it. And it's just like a little minor operation in the future, and it opens up with a click. And the Doctor sees this and is like, I'm taking you right back to Earth. He destroys the answer phone that Adam left the message on that he could use to gain loads of wealth.
I'll remember it. I'll just remember it.
And then there's a funny scene where he meets his mum, and the mum's like, oh, where have you been? I can't remember what the word is, but she ends up clicking. And the final scene of the episode is her screaming as her son's forehead opens up with this implant that he's put in.
I don't remember
I really enjoyed that character. And I was reading more about him and finding that his character is also continued in the comic books, and he actually ends up getting killed off in the end. He ends up sacrificing himself to save Earth from the Master, so he redeems himself somewhat, which is quite nice. I
didn't remember the stuff about him having a door, but I read the note where it said implanted his forehead to interface with computers, and I just imagined a chip in your forehead so that you have to headbutt your phone to transfer a file.
His head opens and you can see a bit of brain inside.
Oh, that's not hygienic.
I thought he was really good in that episode. Next up, now you can talk about this one surely. Saran Jones, Karen MacDonald in Coronation Street. Fantastic actress, and when she left Coronation Street, she's gone on to do lots of big things like The Gentleman Jack and Dr. Foster. She's actually played 2 characters in the Doctor Who universe. One of them was in the Sarah Jane Adventures spin-off, where she played the Mona Lisa.
I just want a quick aside here to say that the fact that you can play Peter Capaldi was in an episode of Doctor Who before he became the Doctor.
He was in the Fires of Pompeii.
Yeah, I know that.
Well done.
Oh, thank you very much. I should do a podcast about Doctor Who. Anyway, the fact that anybody could have been in Doctor Who and it doesn't preclude you from eventually being the Doctor gives me great hope that eventually maybe some of these people might be in the running, because Saran Jones, Catherine Kelly loved Charlie DeMello to possibly be up for
Future Doctor,
but Saran was in
she was in the Sarah Jane Adventures playing Mona Lisa, and I remember watching this. I said, you never watched Sarah Jane with me because it was a kids show after all.
No, that's not why I didn't watch it. I just can't watch everything all the time.
No, I used to watch it before school. I remember recording it off BBC and watching it before school. I don't remember.
Get up at 4 o'clock in the morning
watching this episode.
TV.
No, I don't remember much about what I thought of it, but basically the portrait comes to life for alien reasons and goes around trapping people in paintings, and in the end goes back into her painting. Is about as much as I can remember for that. But the main role in the Doctor Who universe that Saran Jones is most well known for playing was Idris in the episode The Doctor's Wife.
That's right.
Johnson.
You said the bit I could have said.
What?
She is a character. I don't remember this. She's the TARDIS. That's all I remember.
Yeah, the story is that the Doctor and companions.
This setup.
Yeah, they land on some asteroid or something. I think it's like outside the universe. I can't remember. And there's this sentient asteroid with a couple of humans and an Ood in, which was the Dr. Zoidberg-like character in the telekinetic.
They have a little
telepathic powers, little speaking orb, exactly, in that they hold in their hand. So in the story,
I don't remember
this character
any of
Idris's mind gets drained by the asteroid, and then the TARDIS's matrix. I don't really understand what goes on. I've not seen this episode in 15 years. Gets sucked into Idris's body, and then basically Saran Jones is the TARDIS incarnate.
I don't remember the setup. I just remember that suddenly she's the TARDIS.
She's very kind of Bride of Frankenstein-y looking, isn't she? She
doesn't know what's happening. She's got didn't she have a cool costume?
Yeah,
she's a bit crazy.
She's really kooky, and the idea of the TARDIS in a human body, and because it's got all the whole of time and space inside it, it doesn't understand linear time. So she's talking about things that are going to be in the future. She doesn't know what to say, whether to say hello or goodbye, because for her time is all happening infinitely at the same time.
That would really
it was a really brilliant setup, and having a character play the TARDIS.
That's such a bizarre idea.
That's a huge role to fill, and
Yes.
Saran Jones absolutely knocks it out of the park.
Actress.
She's so good. And over the course of an episode, you feel so much love for her, and it's so tragic when at the end her body can't cope with having the TARDIS inside it, and she ends up dying. But over the course of the episode, she develops this kind of romance with Matt Smith's Doctor. And like she says, "Oh, you call me sexy," because to the Doctor, right. The TARDIS is the closest thing that he's had to a romantic relationship.
Well,
I mean, this is before the River Song.
It's a partnership, isn't it? Is that if you're going to put that into a person, that's the person who's known the longest.
It was a really sweet, really clever, perfectly plotted. Episode and concept. And if you're going to see anything that stars on Coronation Street, if you haven't seen that one, which I'm sure most of you have, go and watch The Doctor's Wife. It's very, very good episode. I want to see that again. I haven't seen it since its original airing.
Yes. Now, Sarah Lancashire, another fantastic Corrie export.
Raquel.
Who played Raquel. She played Miss Foster in the series 4 premiere, so the reboot of Partners in Crime, it was called.
Yeah, and this is the window scene episode with Catherine Tate's with Donna and the Doctor that we were talking about.
So this is the adipose story where fat becomes its own being, doesn't it? They look like tiny little blobs.
Yeah,
right?
So Miss Foster is like this intergalactic super nanny.
She's like got her glasses on her nose. That's how you can tell.
She's that kind of. She's a glasses on the nose, wearing a suit, hair in a ponytail kind of lady.
So you've got to be scared of her.
Yes. And,
she's trying to breed a new generation of the adipose people. Yeah. And so she goes to Earth and she pretends to be a human who's got the adipose industries that creates this drug that will flush out human fat cells, and they do that by turning them into this adipose, which is what fat.
It's like a little.
They look like
cuboid blob. It's like a little. Yeah,
don't they? Like with little faces, and they kind of all escape from people.
They're kind of like Minions before Minions, but not funny. They're just kind of cute, weren't they?
Yes, and
little
she takes
CGI.
She takes them onto the nursery ship, doesn't she, to try to grow them.
Yeah, once they're all out of the humans, she tries to beam them up to the spaceship.
Would you take this? I would.
And they end up realising.
I don't mind if my fat cells turn into their own.
I think it kills
beings.
you eventually. Because
that's okay.
The idea there was supposed to be like millions of deaths on this, but the Doctor saves the day.
There's lots of unexplained...
she ends up dying because she gets released by the tractor beam halfway through being beamed up to it, because they realise that what she's been doing, breeding on Earth, is against the Shadow Proclamation, which is some really kind of
cheesy
interspace law. I didn't love her in that role as much as I think that Sarah Lancashire is one of our best actresses. And
it was a bit cartoonish.
It really was, and having these little blobby mascot type characters.
Didn't they used to make noises?
Yeah, I think so. It didn't really tick the right boxes for me. And having Sarah Lancashire playing this stick up her bum type of baddie.
I thought she was good.
She was all right, but I remember being let down because she was Sarah Lancashire. She was Raquel. I was hoping for. Oh yeah, absolutely.
When they were trying to cast, did they say that we have got a female Doctor before they cast her?
Yeah. No, I don't know.
I don't remember either. But
there were just lots of rumours going around.
I'm just going to say that if anyone really genuinely could play the Doctor who is an ex-Corrie cast, Sarah Lancashire would be really high up there for me.
Well, yeah, she
can be scary. She can be sinister. She
Happy
can be
Valley's
really lovely.
Now.
Watch her in Happy Valley because that's I think her best role, even out of Corrie.
Let's blast through a few more. We're almost hitting the 2 hour mark.
Tony Gordon.
This is working well. Tony
so.
Gordon's actor Gray O'Brien played a Doctor Who character in the 2007 Christmas special. This was I think the third Christmas special. It did add Kylie Minogue.
The Titanic Starship.
It had the guy who played Richard in Keeping Up Appearances.
Yes, he didn't like it, did he? He didn't remember that interview.
Oh yes,
he did. He's
hated being in Doctor Who.
Who cares? I was in Doctor Who. I've been an actor for years.
Yeah,
Ask me something else.
That. But anyway, Gray O'Brien plays a not particularly nice or empathetic businessman who goes on the spaceship Titanic and despite
and
all
wonders why it explodes. Yeah.
Yeah, and he survives, and that's about it.
Julie Hesmanhall, she played Hayley, played Julie Maddox in Kablam in 2018.
This was a poor
It was like
episode.
Amazon.
I'm
it was
sorry.
like Amazon, wasn't it?
It was. It was like a
like
commentary
Amazon's
on
taken over the world.
Yeah. So yeah, and she played the head of people for this Kablam shipping corporation, which was basically a load
Are you
of
sure?
robots.
Is it Judy or Julie Maddox?
Judy Maddox.
Because you've written Judy and
I
Julie.
don't know. I don't.
She
Yeah,
played
Judy.
Jay Maddox.
Judy Maddox. That's right. Basically, the story is that there's a human janitor who doesn't like the idea that robots that are taken over the company, and he plans to blow it up, and then they save the day, and then Judy decides that the business is going to be more reliant on humans in the end because people don't like robots.
And this was a Jodie Whittaker.
This was a Jodie Whittaker episode.
There's a lesson
love
to be learned.
Julie Hesmanhall. She played the character very well, but because it was part of the Chibnall era, clearly the story wasn't going to be that great.
Thelma Barlow.
Mavis.
I was going to say O'Reilly, but no.
No, just Riley.
She played Lady Thor in 2007, The Lazarus Experiment. She was the villainous assistant of Richard Lazarus.
Played by Mark Gatiss.
Trying to... Oh, yeah, I love him. They were trying to make a rejuvenating machine to use on herself and become rich and sell immortality to the world. And as you can imagine, it all goes wrong.
Yeah, she
gets turned to a shriveled husk.
Mark Gatiss kind of starts the episode playing the old Dr. Lazarus, and there's a scene in the episode where he kind of goes into his machine, then comes out, and he's all youth, and he's like, "I'm 96 years old" or something.
Yeah,
and I think there's a scene where then the young Mark Gatiss has to snog fairly old Thelma Barlow.
Okay.
I enjoyed seeing Mavis in something that wasn't one of my favourites of the early Doctor Who's, I have to say.
Shobna Gulati, who played the character.
Yeah, Nadia Khan. He played Yaz's mum.
No, I know, but who was she?
Oh, Shanita. She played on
Shanita, yes.
Yeah, she was Yaz's mum, and that's about all.
She's just
really.
a mum. It was
She
nice
just
to
a
see
mum.
her. I was happy.
Nice to see her. I haven't seen her
Now,
in much else.
Sasha Behar, who played Mad Maya.
This was a revelation to me this weekend.
One of the best female villains in Coronation Street of all time.
One of the only female villains in Coronation Street
She
of all
was
time.
in The Fires of Pompeii.
Yeah,
she was in the Sibylline Sisterhood, a cult of soothsayers, and then they all
She had
died.
some funky makeup on, didn't she? So this was set at the time of the Pompeii eruption. The Vesuvius eruption in Pompeii, and the story was about these soothsayers and getting involved with these lava monsters, I can't remember, that lived inside the volcano. Again, possibly haven't seen the episode since its first airing in 2008, 2009. But I thought it was quite cool that it was her. I don't remember watching it going, "Oh look, there's Mad Maya."
I think I do, because I love her.
I don't remember.
She's fantastic. She's so beautiful.
Yeah. Retro pick now, Jeffrey Hughes, who played Eddie Yates. Fantastic.
Love that character.
Lodger, so funny.
The Ogdens.
Of the Ogdens. He played a villain in the classic era of Coronation Street called Mr. Popplewhite Senior. I don't have a date for this actually, but let's just say the 80s. Because it was post Coronation Street.
Okay.
I think it was like after his first stint in Coronation Street, but Eddie did come back for Hilda's last episode, or
That's
around about
okay.
there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't want to get too deep into the Doctor Who lore here because I don't really understand
Time
it.
Lord who was wearing someone's face,
Basically,
and then they pulls his face off.
He can't. From what I understood, I want to explain it more than that. Because from what I understood from the reading, he kind of starts off as being a little facet of the Doctor's personality and like the Doctor's dark side within, and then he becomes flesh or something, and he's a character called the Vale Yard, so he's not actually an individual Time Lord, he's part of the Doctor. But it's quite complicated sci-fi stuff, and I haven't seen the episodes, so I'm not going to pretend I know, but I think it's basically that. And one of the times he is in flesh, he puts on a mask and disguises himself as this Victorian clerk called Mr. Popplewhite, and I did find the scene of this on YouTube and sent it to you the other way.
And like I said,
he gets his face pulled off. And it's the true face of the Vale Yard underneath, and it's a very unconvincing prosthetic mask that he's wearing just on that unveiling scene. So anyway, there's Eddie Yates in Doctor Who. Johnny Dixon we saw a couple of years ago, so he played Daryl Morton. He was in the very first episode with Jodie Whittaker, who he was like a crane driver or something. And we were like, oh look, there's Daryl Morton. He wasn't in it much. I like
Johnny Dixon, he's cool.
Yeah. Brian Moseley was in Coronation Street in one of the really early episodes.
No, he was in Coronation Street playing.
Sorry. He was in Coronation Street playing... Why can't I just name the programmes right? This is terrible. He was in Doctor Who.
Yes.
In 1990...
No, but who was he in Coronation Street?
Alf Roberts.
Okay.
He played this character called Malfa in the Daleks' Master Plan in 1965 to 1966, who was somebody who planned to conquer the solar system with the help of the Daleks, and he had white makeup over his face and little crisscrossy patterns, I think. I haven't seen it, but...
That's fine.
Who knew? Brian Moseley in Doctor Who.
Anne Reid. Now, Anne Reid played Valerie Barlow, who's Ken's tragic first wife.
Also very famous for many things since Coronation Street. She's still going strong.
She played Nurse Crane in 1989's The Curse of Fenric, who was a nasty nurse, gets killed because Fenric takes possession of the body of the person she's been nursing.
And she was also in the Series 2 premiere of the reboot, which was called Smith and Jones. I'm confused, so I'm thinking it's actually the Series 3 premiere, because the Series 2 premiere was New Earth. I do know my stuff just a little bit. So she was in this episode playing a character called a plasmavore, which was like an outer space vampire, and who would suck out people's blood through a straw. She had like a classic red and white striped straw.
We've got some of those in our
And she was an old woman in hospital, because this episode was set in an outer space hospital on the moon, I'm going to say.
Is this for the cats? No. Okay.
Yes, I think... No, she might have had a cat nurse.
There were cat nurses.
Yeah, she might have had a cat nurse. But anyway...
I know what
it was just, I don't remember watching her and going, oh, that's Valerie Barlow, because I didn't really get to know Valerie Barlow until we did the rewatch a couple of years ago. But she was kind of fun. She ends up sucking out various characters' blood, including the Doctor's, which doesn't go down well with her because he's got Time Lord blood, and then the Jadoon, which is the space rhinos. Anyone who's not watched Coronation, is there anybody who's listening to this that hasn't watched Doctor Who? Because I don't know what you must be thinking.
Don't ever watch it. Don't ever watch it.
The space rhinos.
If you're listening to this and you've never seen Doctor Who, just cherish the memories your brain has conjured for you.
I want them to watch it now after hearing about it for 2 hours. They've obviously got a picture in their head about what this programme is like.
No, I want them to go through life with their only knowledge of Doctor Who being a Coronation Street podcast
saying about it. Anyway, they realise that, oh, you're a plasmavore, and then they kill her. But that was quite fun. But I think it was just a small part.
Damn.
Anjali Mahindra played Deb's oldest daughter, Shireen. She's still alive. She's still rich for a comeback. Deb's got plenty of children all around everywhere. But so she was in 2005, 2006, very, very briefly. I think she was in like 2 episodes.
Of the Sarah Jane Adventures?
No, of Coronation Street. Of Coronation Street.
Okay, I don't know. I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah, she played Shireen in Coronation Street, but her role in the Doctor Who universe was playing the character of Rani Chandra, who was one of the main characters in the Sarah Jane Adventures. So that was pretty cool for me. So I must have watched the whole of that Sarah Jane Adventures, not realising that I was watching Dev's eldest daughter. So... the more you know.
Yep.
Do you want to say the next one?
No.
You know who these people are? You know who this is? Craig Else, who played Derek Milligan in Coronation Street. This is the guy who shot Robert Preston and fell off the Helter Skelter, in Christmas 2019.
He was a dog.
He was a kind of a doggish, but you don't call it a dog because he didn't like it. In the Doctor Who Flux special in 2021, I didn't realise that this giant dog-like character. He was a Luparu officer called Carvanista. And he was quite a fun character. He was very kind of gruff. He was the companion of the renegade Doctor, played by, you know, the other female Doctor.
Yeah.
Jo Smith, is it the character? I can't remember. I might be making that name up completely.
Okay.
But yeah, he was a giant dog, and in the suit was Derek Milligan. I don't think I realised that at the time.
So Ian McKellen.
There we go, Gemma.
I know who he is. He was the voice
He played Lionel Hipkiss in Coronation Street, didn't he?
Yep. He was the voice of the Great Intelligence in the 2012 Christmas special, The Snowman, and they also considered him for a number of other roles. Could have been the 8th Doctor.
Yeah, he was considered for a number of... He could have been Paul McGann, but
It could have been Paul McGann, but he'd ended up being Ian McKellen.
Alan Rothwell played David Barlow back in the 60s in Coronation Street, and he
Ken
played
Barlow's brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He played a character called Bizarre Janto in the audio episode The Twilight Kingdom of Doctor Who. And he was an Ondokran, I'm just reading my notes here, an Ondokran medical officer working for a terrorist organisation who ends up helping the Doctor and sacrificing himself so the Doctor can escape some caves.
The Doctor's never grateful. All these people die, don't they? They're always dying.
He has sometimes sad moments.
He just goes, oh well.
And realises that lots of people have sacrificed
How many
themselves
people
for
have
him.
died because of Doctor?
He has
got quite the
reflected
body
on
count,
this.
right?
Yeah. The guy who played Jeff Horton, I'm not saying we're scraping the bottom of the barrel
Who's
here,
Jeff
but
Horton?
he was the guy who who was Tommy Duckworth was sold to by Terry Duckworth,
Okay.
the Horton family.
Really big character.
Yeah,
Dick and Ashworth.
Dick and Ashworth was the actor. He played a Carfelon rebel
Oh my god.
in 1985 who helped the Sixth Doctor defeat the Board in the TV episode
Board.
Time Lash, set in 1885.
Okay, right, we're coming to the end now, right?
We're nearly there.
So-
We're nearly there.
Catherine Kelly, okay? She played Becky in Corrie.
We love Becky.
We loved
McDonald
Becky.
so much.
She was one of Steve's wives. She's fantastic.
One of
She's
your
such
favourite
a
characters ever.
brilliant actress. Along with Sarah Lancashire, I would love Catherine Kelly to be the Doctor. She's just so talented. She played the lead in a spin-off called Class. She played Miss Quill.
This is another spin-off that was kind of a sexy
It was like a teen
elder
show.
teenage swearing and sexy teen,
We
but not
watched
as swearing
some
as
of
sexy
this.
as Torchwood.
It started off really good and it went...
I don't
theme
remember
tune
whether
was
they
brilliant.
did. We watched part of series 1 and then maybe dropped off. The theme tune was a lot of fun. So this
Yeah, I like the
character,
theme
Miss
tune.
Quill, was an alien who came to Earth masqueraded as a human, and she worked at the Coal Hill Academy, which was the school that Ian Chesterton taught at, the very first Doctor Who companion, and also Clara Oswald, who was Jenna Louise Coleman. She taught there as well. But basically, the spin-off was set in the school, and there was it was kind of like just Buffy, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was at a school, and
There was an
bad
alien.
things and aliens
Yeah.
kind of happened there. But she was
It was like Sarah Jane Adventures, but with older kids.
yeah, and she was a
She was
very
the
kind
lead.
of. She was the lead. She was fun. I just remember the scene where she's like, "We're decorating," but I
Yeah.
don't really remember the context.
That was
of it.
hilarious. There was a few really good bits.
This is also available on BBC iPlayer. Just maybe watch the first episode if you're interested.
Alex
But
Clare's song "Up All Night" was the theme
oh,
tune.
that was their theme tune. Yeah, they were planned series 2 of it, but it didn't do very well, so they didn't make it. And that kind of is it so far. There's plenty more. Do write in and tell us if we missed any of your favourites.
Who's your favourite?
But those
one
are
we
characters who are in Coronation Street and then Doctor Who. But we do have one more to come in a couple of weeks' time. Charlie DeMello, our good pal Charlie. who
R.I.P.
played
Imran Habib.
on Coronation
Murdered
Street.
by Toya.
Yes, cold blood. He's going to be on Doctor Who, the 3rd episode of the comeback. The episode is called Giggle, and he's going to be playing a character called Charles Banerjee. Now, very little, in fact, I'm going to say nothing, has been revealed about who Charles Banerjee is.
But this is with sorry.
No, go on.
Well, this is the toy maker.
Yeah, this is the Toy Maker episode,
Who's-
which is bringing back a classic villain from the early days.
But it's what's the name of the actor?
I don't know, you find that out. Well, I'm going to read out what Phil Collinson has had to say about bringing Charlie
The
DeMello.
Celestial Toy Maker.
That's it. So Phil Collinson has said, "It's such a delight to welcome Charlie on board. I was the producer of Coronation Street many years ago, well, not long ago, and I've kept an eye on it ever since. That's how we spotted Millie Gibson. So, when Charlie left the show, he
see.
was immediately on my radar, and we swooped in to get him into the show. You might have already glimpsed him in the trailer, and I can certainly say that Charles Banerjee is heading towards terrors we've never seen on screen before."
Oh.
No idea whether this is a tiny role, whether this looks like a tiny role, but it's end up going to be big, whether it
don't
is
know.
actually a big... We know nothing. Doctor Who publicity machine has quite rightly been fairly tight-lipped
yeah.
on what's going to be happening in these new episodes. I don't want to be spoiled on it, but I am absolutely thrilled that Charlie has got the job on Doctor Who. We've suspected for a very long time that he was going to be on it because he talked to us about he had some projects that he wasn't allowed to share. That's literally all he said.
He said something like, "We've got something really, really massive that I can't tell you about."
Yeah.
And
mine and your minds just went into overdrive.
Yeah.
And we were right.
Yeah.
Although there was a moment where we wondered whether he was going to be the new Doctor. But it's like you said, it's not out of the question.
Exactly.
Because sometimes Doctor takes on faces of people he's met through his journeys through time and space.
So Neil Patrick Harris is going to be the new Celestial toy maker, and it's
he looks good. He looks good.
Character for the first time in 57 years.
Yeah, there's
returning to.
I think this Saturday's episode, which has got Miriam Margoyles playing a little fluffy space creature called Beat the Meep or something. I don't know. Meet the Beep or Beat them. I don't know.
Meet the Meat.
Anyway, that's also
Beep my Neep.
A classic villain, although I think it's just been in comics.
Beep my Neep.
Anyway, I'm really, really excited about Charlie being in this episode, and then the following episode is going to be Millie Gibson playing Ruby Sunday. So if you're a Corrie fan, there's an awful
plenty
lot
of reasons to watch Doctor Who, just apart from the fact that it's really good.
Yeah.
So there's been loads of other people that have appeared in audio dramas. Just very
Can
quickly.
I just give you a quick rundown? Just because I've found these names, I'm not going to say anything about it.
Who they play.
Right. So these are some Corrie characters.
Can I say them and you say who they play?
Yeah. Corrie actors who have since been taken
in audio
part
dramas,
in audio dramas.
Yes.
Go for
Hayley
it.
Madden.
Andrea Beckett.
Charlie Condu.
Marcus Dent.
Brian Capron.
Richard Hillman.
Stephen Hancock.
Annie Bishop.
Ian Bartholomew.
Jeff Metcalfe.
Ian Paulston Davies.
Owen Armstrong.
Tracy Braben.
Trisha Armstrong.
Sandra Huggett.
D.S. McKinnon.
Love her. Roy Hudd.
Archie Shuttleworth.
Owen Aronovich.
John Lindsay.
Denise Black.
Denise Osborne.
Eva Pope.
Tanya Pooley.
Sterling Gallagher.
Oh, what was the character called?
Tracy loved her.
Yeah. Oh, what's Sterling Gallagher's character? It's because I say Sterling on Instagram all the time. Paula something or other. Paula the
lawyer.
Sexy lawyer.
Victoria Econoy.
Angie Appleton.
Cat Pierce.
Lolly.
Well done, Michael. You did a good job. I wouldn't have been able to do that.
I
can't remember names. Well done.
Right, oh my gosh, so my notes for this just go on and on and on. I want to say this because it's important, but we'll maybe run through this. So, little couple of facts for you, everybody. That Idiot's Lantern episode we were mentioning earlier, which had Maureen Lipman playing The Wire, that episode was set on a road called Florizel Street, which is a direct reference to the very first name that Coronation Street was going to be given when Tony Warren first drafted it. There was also, in the episode Turn Left, which I absolutely loved. This is one of Donna
This
Noble's
is making me want to watch Doctor Who again.
Oh, well, there we go. Hopefully that's working for everyone. Turn Left was such a clever episode. It was a what-if sort of episode. Like, what if
Sliding doors.
It was a total sliding doors episode, but in it, Donna insults a woman by calling her Vera Duckworth because she's standing being a bit of a gossip at her front door. There's also a series of books called Short Trips, and one of them has got a story called Christmas Special in, where the Sixth Doctor is dreaming that his life has been the basis for a TV programme which is cancelled and then brought back begrudgingly opposite Coronation Street, which is obviously a reference
to... see?
It was very, very meta reference to when Doctor Who and Coronation Street did go against each other. There was also... I'm sorry, is this boring? I don't know.
No, I'm interested.
Anyway. Oh, okay, well, let me interest you with this. In 2007, during the third series,
Doctor
Who did like one of these blogs as an extra bit of publicity. I can't remember what it's called when you do your publicity for things in lots of weird ways, like making blogs on MySpace, which is what this was. It was written as if it was written by Martha Jones, the companion, the boring companion that fancied the Doctor. And there's a
Dr. Martha Jones.
I know. There's an episode, the Blink episode, where she gets sent back in time to the 60s, and as part of the blog for What I'm Getting Up To in 1969, she says that the Doctor sits around eating beans and watching Coronation Street. So the Doctor, fan of Coronation Street, it's canon.
He loves it, just like the Queen used to watch it.
Yeah. Last year, the BBC released a collection of 11 short stories called Origin Stories, and in the first one, which is called Chemistry, there's the character Ace, and she mentions that her nan watches Coronation Street. So
That's
the Doctor and Ace's nan, big Corrie fans.
Love that.
Also,
Love
I
that
hear
for her.
Dot Cotton likes it too. There was a comic in 2012 called The Broken Man, where the Doctor, Amy and Rory go to Prague in 1989 and they meet
sad.
somebody called Heather, who says that Coronation Street is something that she misses about being in the UK. I would also miss Coronation Street where I am in Prague.
Well, when you
Especially
went,
in 1989 where you can't just watch it online.
when you lived in France, you couldn't watch it.
No, I couldn't watch it, so it's tragic.
Yeah.
There was a 1995 novel called System Shock, set in 1998. A character watches Coronation Street in hospital.
That's
These
amazing.
are fascinating facts here.
That's so cool.
And finally, for now, but there's more to come.
No, it's not the final bit.
In 2005, there was a book released called The Gallifrey Chronicles, in which the Earth is invaded by the Vor, and this is an alien species which are like these giant dragonfly things. They giant insects with mandibles and legs sharp enough and powerful enough to tunnel through rock, apparently. And their method of attack was eating people and then turning all the life on the planet into vomit, and then they would use that as fungus to grow fungus on which they fed.
Okay.
What does vor mean?
I don't want to get into it.
Anyway, as part of that novel, there's a scene where GMTV, which is a morning show on ITV, or it was, it lists celebrities, beloved celebrities, believed to have been killed by the invasion of the Vor, including Ant from Ant and Dec Gemma.
Which one's that?
The tall one.
Oh, I don't like either of them.
I know. He's the one that did that little car accident.
No, we don't talk about that.
And cast members of EastEnders and Coronation Street. So in this book, we've got Coronation Street characters eaten by giant invading insectoid aliens. But on the plus side, Coronation Street apparently lost fewer cast members
good.
than EastEnders.
Well, there's more people in Coronation Street.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
terrible.
So
What a
that's
terrible
even
loss for
better.
EastEnders.
Yeah, exactly. Another little crossover. I'm just kind of randomly throwing out facts because we're 2 hours into this
extra
now.
time explaining.
2011's National TV Awards. There was a little skit at the beginning where Dermot O'Leary, beloved television presenter that's probably very jealous of Ant and Dec getting the award every year for most beloved TV presenter.
Wow.
He goes on a little journey with Matt Smith's Doctor as just to start off the show, and they go around various places, including he stops off in Coronation Street, and Becky McDonald appears on the monitor saying, "Oh, Doctor," she kind of insinuates that her and the Doctor have had a bit of a fling. And she tells them to get that TARDIS off the cobbles or I'll stick a hot pot where the sun don't shine. And the Doctor says, "Terrifying race, the Weatherfieldians," which I think is how we should now always refer to the characters on Coronation Street, the Weatherfieldians.
Maybe that should be our listener name. Our listeners, the Weatherfieldians.
Maybe it should.
Because all the big podcasts have got a special lingo, don't they?
Yeah.
Who was the Doctor there then?
Smith.
Okay,
Matt Smith.
I
said.
You didn't.
There have probably
Did
been
you?
countless. I did.
Okay.
I did. Countless mentions of Doctor Who in Coronation Street. I couldn't find many, but I did find that in 1969, which is the coach crash in the Lake District, there's a nurse who's talking to Ina Sharples, who's in hospital, and she says about something, I don't know what it is. "You realise I'm going to have to tell Dr. Matthews," and Ina Sharples says, "I don't care if you tell Doctor Who."
She knows. She's got a finger on the pulse.
If Ina Sharples says you're allowed to call the character Doctor Who's going
I'm not
to
arguing
stand
with
up
her.
and say no, it's actually the Doctor? You're a braver man than I.
She would have been a great
if you would
villain in
say
Doctor
that.
Who.
Yeah. There was an episode in 1962 where Elsie and Alan take Paul Chevesky, their grandson, to Bellevue, which is a place in Manchester, where he goes on a ride, which is a Dalek ride. I have no other
I hope that
information.
they
I've not
paid
seen this episode.
copyright for that.
And still not finally. I keep meaning to say
Come on,
finally, but I'm
it's nearly
scrolling
done.
down, my notes keep going. Do you remember there was an episode a few years ago where Roy and Mary go to Blackpool to hunt down Jude, and Roy's sitting in the car.
Yes!
And you see reflections of Daleks and a TARDIS go past. So there's on the back of a lorry while they're filming, there's just this
Yes.
random Dalek and TARDIS appearance in
I
Coronation
thought that was
Street,
fantastic.
which is weird. Simon's mentioned Doctor Who at one point, and I think
So
that's
Doctor Who
about
definitely
it.
exists.
Doctor Who exists in the world of Coronation Street.
And vice versa.
But I've got more evidence for Coronation Street existing in Doctor Who, and if that's not some kind of paradox, then, well, I don't know
And-
what is. Which one's real?
Which one is real?
Weatherfield was a real place. I'm not having that. If you're telling me that Weatherfield's not a real place, Gemma.
Right. So I don't know how many times Doctor Who's mentioned EastEnders,
No, I don't know.
but it is quite interesting that Doctor Who's mentioned Coronation Street enough times considering that it is a rival channel, and it's a rival to their flagship.
Well, I think they both respect each other's legacy in British television, as do we.
Yeah, we do, yeah. So thank you everybody for listening to us confusingly
I thought that was
stumbling
okay.
through. Yeah.
Despite the fact that we didn't know a lot about what we were talking about.
No,
for some
did.
of it. We did for some of it. But I hope that this is what people wanted, because we've been wanting to do this episode for years and years and years, and it never really felt like a right time for it. And then we were contacted by one of our listeners a few months ago.
Was it on Patreon?
Yeah, on Patreon, saying you really should do this, Daniel. And so we said yes, we should. And you've been nudging me for the last. You said you can't forget, don't forget, we got to do this. This is going to be a really good one.
I don't know why I thought that the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who might slide past unnoticed.
No,
but I was worried that we'd miss it.
So here it is. We've given a bit of a rundown of crossover actors. So hopefully it's inspired some of you to go and check them out on iPlayer and go and see a young Helen Worth or John Savardant before they went into Coronation Street. And maybe if you've seen episodes of Coronation Street and we've told you some actors that are in it, but maybe back at the time we didn't realise, or is that just me? Who that happens to, not realising that they're watching somebody that they have seen before.
Unless you're a super
Go back and watch it.
recogniser.
It certainly inspired me to want to go and watch that Saran Jones episode of Doctor Who again. And it's even made Gemma want to watch Doctor Who. And for the last few years,
You've been inspired.
You've not even been in the room for some of the episodes. I've sat through all of the episodes because that's what I do.
Yeah.
If I say that I watch something, then I watch it to the bitter end.
Yeah. But I'm really excited about the upcoming episodes.
Mega excited about this weekend.
I love David Tennant. Yes. I love Donna Tate. Catherine Tate. Sorry.
We're not even going to be able to watch it live on Saturday because we're going on a trip to London on Saturday, aren't we? And so we'll have to watch it when we get back. But I'm really excited about it. Super duper excited about Millie Gibson playing Ruby Sunday. I really, really hope she's a great character. I'm going to listen to this back in about 4 months' time and see whether I'm right or not in thinking that she's going to be amazing for the role. And I hope you guys enjoyed this, and those of you who are big Doctor Who fans and also Coronation Street fans, I hope that we did it justice. I hope that we didn't sound too amateurish. That's about it, really.
Thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you at the weekend for our usual discussion about Coronation Street, and we're also going to be doing a Patreon episode fairly soon.
Oh yeah, it's coming to the end of the month, isn't it?
Maybe it'll be Doctor Who, because we did have some discussion points we didn't get to, which we
have talked about. We've done Doctor Who chats on the podcast before. We've done listener questions like which Coronation Street actor would make the best Doctor, and I think we were both in agreement at the time that Conor McIntyre would make a fantastic Doctor.
He'd be a good master.
And I'm sure we've done some time travel-y things as in there as well, but we haven't got time to go over them again. I think we've done enough.
It's like longer than a film now.
It is.
Thank you everyone for listening. Can I say goodbye now?
Yes, say it.
Goodbye.